Okay, good morning, everyone. This is the Washington State Building Code Council full council meeting for January 23rd, 2026. Can we please take roll?
Yes. Bob Byworther,
Here.
Jay Arnold,
Here.
Chell Anderson,
Good morning, everybody.
and Scott Bastiani,
Here.
Justin Borgo, Tom Handy,
Here.
Angela Hott,
Here.
Roger Haringa,
Here.
Ty Mincer,
Here, just a heads up, I'm acting chair of the Sentencing Guideline Commission and I have to chair a meeting from 12 to 1, so I'll be clicking out for an hour and then back. But I'm here till then.
thank you. Ben O'Mara,
Here.
Pete Reekie, Katie Sheehan, Dan Young,
Here.
Tom Young,
Here.
and I see Justin with his hand up. I'm guessing you're here.
Yeah, I stepped away just for a
Okay.
second. Sorry about that.
It's all right, we got you. So let's do again Pete Reekie, Katie Sheehan,
Here.
Katie's here, and Roger Haringa. I see online now.
Well, I said I was here.
Oh, you were here earlier. I'm sorry, Pete. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll continue with introductions. Would anyone from the public like to be recognized? And as I said that, I need to pull up the panelists so I can see the hands. Go ahead, Tim.
Tim Atterbury, Associated General Contractors of Washington.
Welcome. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, this is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington. Thank you.
Welcome. I see Elizabeth next.
Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew.
Hi, Matthew Friedlander from Renew Air in Bridgend, Wisconsin. Thanks for your openness. And I'm going to have to drop off and back on because of problems I'm having.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Lisa, please.
Hi, Lisa Rosno, Evergreen Technology Consulting. We provide tech support for the commercial provisions of the Energy Code. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those are all recorded. I don't see any other hands. We will move into item number 2 to review and approve the agenda. Can we hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved. This is Jeff.
Second, this is Dan.
Okay, thank you, Jane Dan. Any discussion or proposed edits? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Do we have minutes for item 3?
Yes, they're on the screen now.
Thank you so much. Can we hear a motion to approve minutes from November 14th, 2025?
Move to approve as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was Tom and Justin. Any proposed edits? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? Those minutes are approved. Okay, so back to our agenda. Public comment. Okay, would anyone from the public like to address the council for something that's not on today's agenda? I see Pete raising your hand.
Hi, guys. I have enjoyed my time here at the SBCC, but my tenure is up January 6th, so I'm officially not on the SBCC anymore, although technically I think I can remain on the voting, continue voting for 90 more days according to the law, but I have decided to actually withdraw at this time. And so I just wanted to say adios, amigos. I have had an enormous amount of great fun with the SBCC, and I think that you guys have done an incredible amount of great work, and the expertise and the discussions that have gone on over the last 4 years that I've been on the SBCC have been really quite educational, and I have enjoyed my time. So, with that, I was not on the agenda, or not on the uh, uh, polling of members present. So I'm going to just lower my hand and sign off, and wish you all the best in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. I think I speak for all, and I think others. We really appreciated, obviously, your service, but most importantly, your knowledge and kindness on this council. And thank you for coming today to share that with us. Go ahead, Roger.
I just wanted to say the same thing, Pete. It's been an honor to serve with you, and I appreciate your opinions and thoughts. And so we will miss you. And thank you for all of your service.
Thank you. Bye bye, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Pete.
Is that a panelist or is that
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was nice. Anyone else from the public would like to address the council? Okay, I'm monitoring, seeing no hands. Okay, so we'll start our. Go ahead, Dustin.
Can I get a mic check?
On you, yes, you're fine.
Okay, I've got indicators in here saying my mic's not working, but I just want to make sure we can hear each other.
No, it's coming through the SBC TC feed.
That's our meeting room.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving into our agenda, item number 5. So we have bylaws, and our bylaws posted on the website under Article 2, say under council officers, say that we shall have elections the first regularly scheduled council meeting of the calendar year. So we've set this up to elect the chair and vice chair first. And then we have put on the agenda item 6, then to move into appointments for the committees and the TAG chairs. Technically, we don't have to do the committee appointments or the TAG chairs at this meeting, to my understanding. I could be wrong and happy to be corrected on that. But let's first start with the officers.
So I wanted to point out we have 5 members whose terms were up this year. Those dates are highlighted on the screen that I'm sharing here today. And then we also have 1 vacant position, which is the city elected official from the East. And that was really the only point I wanted to make on this list here before. Everybody who's on this list is eligible to put their name in the hat for chair, vice chair. And so that's all the prime I wanted to do on this topic. And I guess we would be asking for volunteers for chair, or, Todd, are you interested in putting your name in the hat? Or go ahead.
Just before we jump in, I just wanted to make sure everybody is clear on that. I don't believe, am I correct in saying that we do not have rules around whether or not somebody is reappointed? Last year was an example where multiple.
We held off until we got the reappointments confirmed.
Correct. So I just want to make sure that's clear to the council, or make sure there's no objections to that. I see Jay's hand.
Yeah, I would like to nominate Todd for another term as SBCC chair.
Second.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm honored for that nomination. Thank you. And I would be willing to serve. I guess technically I'm still chair, so if are there any other nominations, self-nominations or other for chair? Okay, with that, could we try a voice vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, thank you. I am again, honored to serve in this position for one more year. With that, if I can take a point of privilege, I would like to nominate Jay Arnold for vice chair.
Second.
I accept the nomination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to self-nominate or nominate someone else for vice chair? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Arnold, for your service. Okay, so that moves us into agenda item 6 then. We can address this multiple ways. In the past, we've reviewed the list. I think we have options as a council. If we don't feel we're ready to make any of these appointments, we can defer table. So I think it's really the will of the council to decide how we approach this process. I see a question from Scott. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Todd, on the last slide, so when a term ends, how does the transition occur? Are they nominated again, or how does that work if it's up on 1-5, do they just carry on?
Thank you for that question, and it is important to clarify, especially for new members. Can someone help me, please, where the 90 days is that in our bylaws, or is it? I think that might be in RCW.
There's an
It's in
RCW.
Okay.
Yep. And so starting on January 5, a 90-day period or grace period begins, where your term is up technically, but during that 90-day period, you have the powers as a full powered council member. After the 90 days, if there's no appointment made by the governor's office, you can still sit in the meetings, but you won't have a vote in the meetings. In order to have someone reaffirmed in these positions, an application needs to be made to the governor's office. So on our homepage right now, we have these seats that are open advertised and links to the governor's page to submit applications, submit recommendations, and things like that.
Thanks for that.
And Scott, we have had a situation in the past where the chair wasn't reappointed, and so the vice chair took over for the remaining, part of that term. So
I'll just add that, since a third of us need to be reappointed every year, it would be impossible if we weren't able to elect people who were up for reappointment. We'd lose a third of the potential members for any of the committees and tags. So it makes sense to allow everybody to be appointed to a committee, and then it's up to the governor to decide if they maintain their are reappointed.
Okay. Agreed. So thank you. Unless someone doesn't plan on reapplying, it is out of our control on the actual appointment. So, okay. Back to then the committees. We start with our standing committees. Is that correct, Dustin, or how would you like to go through these?
I was planning on running through the committees kind of as I have them listed here on this sheet. Names that are highlighted are just there to show the members who are up for reappointment this year, and there's really no need to make a change. I think this is more of a confirmation that people still have the availability to serve in these roles on the committees and serve as chairs for the tags as well. And so, I guess I'd be asking folks that are on these committees, we can go by one and make sure that everybody's still interested in those seats on the committees, and then we can affirm their composition for the year 2026.
So is that how the council would like to do this? Go through the list and then we can take action on all of them? Is that okay? Okay. So going through, if we can start with the legislative committee if we like, and ask Tom Handy if you are still interested and willing, and if anyone else is interested, please, use this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm interested in staying on as chair too.
I personally would be honored if you would continue on in that role. I think you serve that role very well. The rest of the positions on there are now also dependent on the chairs of their committees, so we can circle back to this after we establish the other committees.
And then Todd, I'm not sure if you're seeing Scott has his hand up.
Oh, Scott, did you still have your hand up, or did you have it? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Roger.
I looked it up myself because I know it's always sometimes hard to find, but just to get it in the record, for new members in particular, RCW 19.27.070 is where the 90-day is. The 90-day is actually item number F, what that must be, 4F. So anyway, that's where you go to find the RCW. Just figured I would get that out there for everybody.
Thank you, Roger.
Okay, thank you. If it's okay, let's move to the BRFW committee, please. So again, we're establishing the chair position here because we're going to have to then circle back once we do the TAG appointments. So Roger, go ahead.
I was going to say that, if we confirm the chairs on these committees, that the other seats just follow suit on this one per the tag chair makeup. So we wouldn't necessarily need to come back to revisit these as long as we go through the tags and confirm those chairs. And then any changes that need to be made can just be made as we repost this if there's any changes needed.
Yeah, I think we should come back and make sure that the council members at large are still willing, and after we go through their chairs.
Todd, I am, if you will have me, I am comfortable and willing to be the chair of the BFRW committee.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other interest? Thank you, Roger, for your service on that. Okay. Let's go down to MVPE. In this case, Tom, I want to bring up last year, when we discussed this, we had discussed a balance between TAG chairs and committee chairs. So I just want to raise that question again and see who is interested in this chair position, or if there are any nominations.
And Tom on this has been in the position not even a full year yet, and so he's been doing a great job so far. I just want to point out he hasn't served a long period in this role.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Tom, for filling that role. Go ahead, Ben.
And echoing that, like Tom's been great stepping in for the committee chair. I would say that I would be interested in serving as chair for this committee. I am planning on reapplying for my council position, and I would see it as a good means to stay involved, as we expect that for the preceding future there may be less MVP tag activity, but there's going to be plenty of committee activity to keep track of. So I'd be happy to chair this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Go ahead, Tom.
So I'm happy either way to let Ben take the chair position or continue on the chair position. It's been an honor. And it's been my pleasure, but unlike Roger, who's comfortable, I'm still trying to gain my comfort level here.
Thank you, Tom. Well, you've done a great job, so thank you. Go ahead, Jay.
Given that Pete has resigned, if there is a position on this committee for a council member, I'd be interested in filling that position, number 6.
Okay, thank you. Okay, how would the council like to, we have two nominations so far. Anyone else?
I would second both of those nominations if we need that.
Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Shell.
Just trying to think if is there something, a different committee or tag, Tom or Ben, that you would like that you would want to lead if you didn't get this one? In other words, is there something better out there that you'd like to lead?
My turn. Okay.
Let's go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
Okay. I guess the energy residential is a tag chair. Or co-chair. Or I would be interested in being on if I'm not on the MVPE. Chair.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ben.
And yeah, I guess to reiterate, like I would definitely still be interested in chairing the MVP tag. However, I know Justin is the co-chair of that tag as well, so I'd be happy to have him take chair of that position. And yeah, I guess those would be these would probably be the only two that I would see myself as providing value in, beyond maybe the commercial energy code tag for alternate or chair position.
Okay.
Yeah, Ben, I appreciate that, but to be honest, I'm going to I guess they're working on somebody to appoint in my place. Since I took the business manager job, my bandwidth has gotten pretty narrow, so I will be probably next meeting may be my last. So we'll see where we go. But yeah, I couldn't accept that, unfortunately. So, but I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Sorry to hear that, Justin, but thank you for that. Okay, so moving forward on this, we have two nominees. How would the council would we like to go through a vote to resolve? As awkward as that can be, should we go through a simple roll call and go ahead, Tom?
So I'll just say I'll abstain from the vote.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I propose then we'll take a simple roll call and please choose your preference between Ben and Tom or Tom. And I will abstain.
Sorry, just 1 second, getting it pulled up. So Jay Arnold,
Ben Amora.
Shell Anderson,
Tom Young.
Scott Bastiani,
Ben Amora.
Justin Borgo,
Team Ben.
Tom Handy,
I'd like to see Tom doing more, so Tom, please.
Angela Hop,
Ben Amora.
Roger Haringa,
Ben Amora.
Ty Menser,
Ben Amora.
Ben, did you want to vote?
Abstain. Thank you.
And Pete's gone. Katie Sheehan,
Ben Amora.
Dan Young,
Ben Amora.
and Tom was going to abstain. So it looks like Ben has it. 1, 2, 3. 8-2.
Okay. Thank you both for your willingness to serve. Let's go. I think now we've established the two standing committees. Now we can be a little more free form about how we populate the tags. Do you want to do the tag first, or do you want to continue with the at-large on the standing committees? It might be valuable to establish the tags to see who are the automatic appointees on the standing committee.
If we could go through and just kind of wrap these ones up, the members at large. I think it would just kind of be more succinct.
We can. My concern is, I know it's a different. My concern is that if isn't appointed to a TAG chair, but they still want to be on the standing committee, then
Okay. Well, then maybe we should do the tag chairs first, and then that makes it clear who is still at large.
is everyone okay with that? Go ahead, Tom.
No, that's what I was going to say too, just so that we don't end up doubling up somewhere somehow.
Yep. Someday maybe we'll have a more better procedure for this, but we seem to reinvent every year when we do this. So okay.
Apologies for having the legislative committee on there twice. That was a mistake.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we can start with this one. I'm going to step down from the building code tag. I think we need to, I agreed to stay on because we were mostly dormant this year. So, but I think it's best if someone moves into this position that also is interested in leading in the next cycle. Is anyone interested? Go ahead, Angela.
I'd be willing to switch to the building code.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, let's please put Angela's name in there and we can then get this all balanced out and vote in the final action. Thank you, Angela. I think you'd be a great fit for that role. Okay. Fire code. Go ahead, Roger.
Are you doing vice chair alternates at this point or not?
Oh, we should, yeah.
I want to strongly support Angela as the tag chair, and I will volunteer as the chair alternate.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Roger. Fire code. Dan, are you still willing?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Angela, do you have different thoughts about the alternate there? Are you still willing? Angela, you're
Yeah, fine. Yep, I can stay if nobody else wants to.
Okay, go ahead, Roger. Thank you, Angela. No? Okay. Now let's go to the energy code. Let's look at both these together. Go ahead, Chell.
I'm still willing to serve. I did apply for reappointment. I'm still willing to serve on both of the Energy Code Technical Advisory Groups as the chair.
Okay, and Ben, you had indicated interest in the residential.
Commercial, and I would with the standing committee chair for the MVPE, I would be happy to not be energy code tag chair. So I wouldn't be putting my hat into the ring for that one at this point.
Okay.
Potentially the alternate position if Scott's not interested.
Okay, and both Scott and Tom, you had shown interest. Is that correct?
In the residential one.
Commercial for me is fine. Yeah.
Okay, you're both still interested in that. Okay, so how do we want to resolve then in this? Can we hear some opinions maybe? Okay. Not hearing any feedback.
Well, it sounds like our commercial energy code tag, the current members are interested to remain in place. And then the residential one, Chell's willing to still remain in that role. Tom Young has expressed interest in, chairing that committee as well. Maybe suggest a flipping of those two roles that we have on the screen right now.
Go ahead, Tom.
Just a suggestion.
You're on
You're
mute,
muted,
Tom.
So I would be just happy to be on the entry code residential tag, and I'm also happy to be on the alternate position also.
I
So,
think,
Chell's been doing a good job. So, I'm happy to be there to support him.
okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jay.
And just looking ahead with Angela taking the building code and your particular expertise, I'm looking ahead and wondering if the residential code might be a chair, a fit for you, Tom, if you're interested in that.
Okay. So I would prefer to be on the entry code residential tag. So I actually have a mechanical engineering degree, and so I have far more um, experience in dollar wise commercial construction than actually residential construction. Although I built hundreds of homes, so my comfort level is probably better on the entry code residential tag. So.
Okay. Okay, and as much of this as we're thinking ahead, because now we're gonna start transitioning. We're gonna try to get to the finish line of adoption, obviously this year, and then we start thinking ahead to the next cycle and how we transition in succession and so forth into those roles. So, okay, if there's no objection to the makeup of the commercial and residential tag, I guess I look to Ben. Are you comfortable with this? Okay. Okay, then let's leave those for now, and then residential code tag. And just assuming you don't want to do both.
That is correct.
Okay, that would be a heavy lift, but okay. So, are there interested council members for the residential code tag?
So Todd, I'm willing to stay as the chair alternate.
Okay.
I don't think I have the time to do two chairs, but as an alternate, excuse me, an alternate, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anyone willing to step up to this? And if not, go ahead, Angela.
Wait, I'm already the backup on the fire, aren't I?
Correct.
I mean, I could be the backup if nobody else wants to for the residential.
And again, we're more flexible. So if we have a shift of a point of council members, coming up here, we can pivot, and so we can continue on and then transition later as we get closer to adoption or past adoption. Okay. So am I hearing, Angela, are you going to just stay in that role for now? Since the building code is mostly dormant right now? Well, that's not true.
Yeah. Oh, so nobody's interested in being the main chair. Okay. Yeah, I'll stay in that for right now. And then as we get closer, maybe I
We'll
can
transition.
pressure someone else.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And as the alternate, I'm willing to help out wherever, Angela, but I just don't have the time to be two chairs. So
Yeah. And that being said, I will also make the commitment, Angela, to join the IBC tags as we're very, active finishing up those two legislative mandated um, tasks. So go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, Angela, I'm a maybe to be the chair. The single exit multiplex, we're still finishing that up. And I also am trying to keep my plate somewhat clean if there is a similar ad hoc committee in the next code cycle. I would be interested in kind of running with that. So I would prefer to not step up right now. So.
Okay. Well, we can move on. We have some new appointees coming. So the WUI code. Katie, how do you feel about the WUI code?
Well, I didn't do a whole lot last year. There was a lot of just talk. So I don't know. It kind of depends on what happens in this next legislative session. I mean, I'm fine to stay with it.
Okay.
And I mean, we'll need to replace Peter, obviously. So I don't know who would like to join it. But yeah, I'm fine to continue on.
Okay.
In sort of limbo.
Thank you, Katie. And I believe a bill is coming. So Jay, go ahead, please.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in being the alternate on the
Okay. I think that would be a great fit. Thank you, Jay. Okay, let's put that in then. Thank you, Katie and Jay. MVP. We discussed Justin. Go ahead, Ben.
Yep, as Justin maybe headed out, I would be happy to remain as tag chair for this time, and maybe following the appointment of Justin's replacement, we could revisit it, unless there's anyone else that's interested.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Anyone interested in the chair and the alternate position? If not, we can leave it blank for now. Okay, let's leave it blank. Okay, we don't have to address single exit and multiplex. Can we keep your name in there, obviously, Roger and Dan?
Yeah, I didn't know. I see it on the list there. It is not on the agenda.
Okay.
So whatever we need to do procedurally, I certainly would really like to finish it. We are 95% done. So
I can't imagine another path. So
okay. I'm good staying there.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, is that it? I think. Okay, then going back up then to the committees, knowing those all those positions that I automatically fill in, are there any at-large ones that we would like to change? On first, the legislative committee, we have 3 at-larges, right?
Yes.
Jill, Ben, and Angela. Did any of that? That's not affected by the tags, but the MVP would be Ben, so therefore it would be number 7 would be. So we're looking for another at-large and confirming Chell and Angela are willing to serve on this committee.
Willing to serve.
Thank you.
Yes, willing to serve.
Okay. And then can we have one more volunteer for the at-large?
I'll volunteer. Todd.
Scott, thank you for that. Anyone else? Go ahead, Chell.
My understanding of these is there a fixed number of slots, or is this just based on the number of people interested?
I don't remember the legislative.
So on this one, it's a fixed number of slots. There's some specific people called out for roles here. And the slot numbers we're trying to keep from establishing quorum of the full council.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a fixed number of slots, and we want to fill them. I thought I'm vaguely recalling some committees or other groups had it was based on who was interested in being part of it, in addition to the kind of required folks based on their chairmanship.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
So I understand the committee chairs automatically are on the legislative committee, and it might be helpful, I guess, if we, and I guess you are showing, the MVP and BFRW are automatically members there. Okay, so it just seems like there's 2 that are required because of committee chair position, and I guess the others are like at large. Is that correct?
Correct. 3 at large.
And I would be interested in filling one of those at large positions.
Okay, Tom, thank you. Katie?
What happens if there is quorum, just because I like to join this when I can, but
So is Dirk online by chance?
I am
Not
here. My apologies for being late, everyone. Fire alarm went off my building.
so.
Who regulates them?
Well, not only did I leave, I'm one of our floor managers, so I had to round people up and, wearing too many hats.
So I guess the question, Dirk, is, sometimes, so we have the content of our committees kind of structured to not establish quorum of the council. And, from time to time, other council members will join the meetings and, not take part in the voting. But is there issue with council members being in excess of the number 8 in our committees, either by attendance or by appointment, like we have here? So we have 8 folks here listed out. And I do believe that at some point we had some duplicate names filling positions on this one. So question is there an issue with us establishing quorum? These are open public meetings. The council members who join in excess of these group members aren't participating in the voting. And I believe that we've had the conversation before that it's not an issue, that there might be a larger group than we have traditionally had in the past.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Just want to make sure
Yes,
we're good. Yeah, so you put your finger on it, right? We care about compliance with the OPMA, and the OPMA obligations under that are triggered right when we have a quorum of members of the council meeting, irrespective of where they meet, whether it's in a committee or on a street corner. If you're conducting business and there's a majority of members, it's a quorum and it needs to be open to the public. So I don't have a concern if people are showing up to the meetings and it puts it into a majority, but we would need to make sure that the people who are showing up aren't actively participating in the meeting. It's not just enough to take votes to be an active participant, also discussions in the meeting too, as a member of the committee would be agency action. It would subject it to the terms of the requirements of the OPMA. So the way I've seen it worked out in other contexts, if someone shows up to the meeting as a visitor and says, "Hey, I have some questions," or "I have an opinion about this," that would be fine. But if they're participating in the committee and there are 8 members, then the risk is that would be seen as a full council meeting. OPMA requirements would be triggered.
So then as far as official membership, we should not have 8 slots on this one, but it would be okay for ex officio members to have that honorary slot in there as well.
Yeah, so quorum under our bylaws, I had to think for a second, is a quorum of voting members. So yes, ex officio would be fine because they're not voting members.
And of the seats, not of the actual filled seats.
So as a
a quorum is 8 under our bylaws. A quorum, correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, but a quorum is 8 voting members.
15, yeah.
I believe so.
So a follow-up. So if there's a discussion and I'm the 9th member, and I chime in and say, well, I think this, but then they vote and I don't vote. Is that action?
Well, I would encourage, if that's happening, I would encourage just
keep your mouth
members to
shut.
just be really clear about. No, you should feel no limitations to not participating in these in a meaningful way. But we just want to avoid it appearing as if it's a full council meeting. So if you come here and say, "Hey, I'm not coming here as a member of this committee, but I do have a question," that's fine.
Okay.
Or I have an opinion, that's fine. But if people start sitting down and have it appear that you're a full-blown member of the committee, and it would look potentially like it's the full council. Now, I want people to understand these committees already follow the requirements of the OPMA. So these are public meetings. What we're concerned about here, just the risk would be that it would be perceived as a council meeting if there's a majority of meetings, and that's something we would want to avoid unless the council has noted it up as a council meeting to conduct council business.
Okay. Thank you. It's always good to relearn this. We have a few hands up. Chell, please.
Yeah, thank you. So we have 14 voting members on the council currently. 8 is more than half of 14. So would that mean we shouldn't have 8 voting members on the legislative committee?
It appears.
That was my question as well.
Yeah, it appears we probably need to right size this back down to 7 and not fill Pete's or Ben's role, number 7. Go ahead, Roger.
My comment, I have two comments. One of them was the same thing, although by my count, there are only 13 members. Pete has officially resigned and there is one open spot. So I guess seven would be a majority of 13. So I'm almost going to suggest that I guess, Dirk, do these need to be 6?
No, just a reminder, our bylaws provide that it's 8 members is a quorum. It's not a majority of members of the committee. It's just 8. So the council.
Okay, all right. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, and this is an important thing to remember too, given you now only have 13 members currently temporarily. For a full council meeting, the council cannot transact business unless we have 8 members show up.
So does that mean we could have a maximum of 7 on this legislative committee?
I would have no objections to that.
But in other words, we can't have 8 on this legislative committee because that would be a quorum of the council.
The concern would be that that would appear to be a quorum of the council meeting.
Okay.
So if I may offer then, thank you for offering, Scott. Let's, unless there's objection, maintain Angela and Chell. And we have clarified today that we need to eliminate this additional position.
I think that's fine. I do have a question about so what does it mean to be a member at large, and how do you get called in? So if you really shouldn't have a role if you just attend, or how does that work?
These would be the voting positions.
Got it.
On the committee. Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you, though. Okay, go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I have my second comment, and it kind of is addressed to Dirk. And I don't know if I have a solution, but the appearance to me is these legislative committee meetings are open to the public. Any public member can call in and offer their thoughts and their ideas. So to somehow, given your discussion, those council members who are not on the committee theoretically could not call in and offer their opinions like any member of the public could. So to clarify, if Katie or somebody who is not a voting member called in and said, I am here acting as my own individual person, not a council member, could they not attend and offer their opinions and thoughts?
Yeah. I wouldn't want to offer any advice here that would discourage members from offering opinions to committees if they have opinions. I don't believe you're precluded from participating in some way in the work of the committees if you're not on the committees. If you show up, we see this all the time. For example, in the legislature, members will show up and testify on items that they might have opinions about. People show up in their individual capacity to offer opinions on matters. So, given the fact that these are subject to the OPMA, and so long as a member is showing up and not in their role as for the purpose of transacting council business, but to just offer an individual viewpoint on a specific item, I don't think there's a lot of risk that would be deemed to be a council meeting. But you want to be clear if you're doing that, the role that you're doing it in.
and we're getting into obviously very specific scenarios, and it's good that it's educational as we make a decision here. But also, to me, it sounds like it's also dependent on whether all of the voting members are present.
All of those things are true, right? Yeah.
So,
I mean, I want to be clear again. So we're not talking about circumventing OPMA. The OPMA is being followed here by the committees. It's required to be followed by the committees under our laws. And so that's not really the concern that I have. Just the concern that I have is if it appears to be that the council is conducting business if their 8 members are present.
okay. Thank you I think this is all helpful. I think our clarity today is that we should have 7 positions for now. And I think we've established that. Okay. Scrolling down to BRW, any changes here? I think or any of I guess it's Tom and Scott, unless there's a desire to not serve on this. You're right. So this changes because the chair has to be on this committee, and no, it doesn't change because we have the building code tag. Is that what we're saying here? Because I was serving dual roles technically.
Well, that and Angela's primed to be the chair of the building code
Right.
tag.
So
And
let's clean that up, but then I think, am I obligated as chair to be on the committee?
Yes.
The chair is a member of all standing committees.
Yeah. So does that bump an at-large position off, unfortunately?
It would, yes.
So Scott and Tom, I'll let you fight over that.
Well, I mean, there's still room for them because right now Angela is primed to be also still the residential code tag chair too.
Okay. Okay. If everyone's fine continuing, well, just remember we have to adjust this then when we get to potentially renominating a residential tag chair. Okay. Tom and Scott, you're still willing to serve now?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Can I ask one more question out of ignorance?
Yes,
How do you do I need to go to the website and find these meetings and then just attend them, or are the invitations sent out?
The invitations are sent out to so after the legislative meeting, stuff that happened last week where we had some interruptions. We're running council meetings or all meetings as webinars now. So we have panelists and we have attendees. We have a general link that will go out to our website and goes out with our gov deliveries. And so that will have a generic link that will bring you in. And if you follow that link, you won't be allowed to unmute or share your video. If by chance, as a council member or a member of these committees, you drop into the attendees room, staff keeps an eye on those and will promote you into the panelists so that you don't have to get permissions to speak and share your screen. And then as a panelist, you'll get specific emails coming out with a panelist link and also agenda stuff coming out to you. And then for the rest of everybody, it just goes out via our gov delivery. So there's a couple different methods that we get the notice out there. And so as a member of the committee, you should be getting some specific emails targeting these meetings. But the other option is, oh, heck, we can't find the email in our inbox for some reason. You can always reach out to us to get a resend of the panelist invite. Or you just if you know the meeting's there, you can navigate to it on our website, join as an attendee, and then get promoted in. And so there's a couple of avenues, but we try to make sure that you're aware of these meetings as they come up. And as they're planned, we try to put out placeholders on members' calendars so that they're aware they're coming, because the agendas aren't always prepped and ready right at the time of the planning of the occurrence of the meeting.
Thanks, Dustin.
Okay, go ahead, Shell.
Yeah. One thing I do, Scott, is as soon as the schedule comes out for the year, I just go ahead and put recurring appointments on all those things based on that. Just so that, 6 months down the road, I don't plan something that it's like, well, why did I do that? And I knew, and this meeting was coming up. So I always do that at the beginning of the year, and then the whole from staff, confirms that.
Perfect.
One thing is not scheduled for the whole year is the tag meetings. Those come out on an as needed basis.
Okay. Okay. And back to our business here. I think we're set on this tag. Are we on the MVPE?
Yep.
So we would have to remove both Peter and Justin on this. And then Ben would technically double up. So there's an opportunity for Katie. Are you still willing to serve on this one?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I'm doing math in my head here. What does that leave us with?
Jill, you're still in the role for both the energy code tags, I believe, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jay. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Just wondering if Tom is interested on this committee, since we have open slots for council.
Tom Young, I think you.
Yes, please. Would love to do it.
I would be interested in this as well.
Okay. So I'm hearing Tom and Scott. And is there technically one more role open here?
Yeah, we'll need one for the new plumbing, or it's not necessarily plumbing, the new Justin's replacement.
I'd take a seat if there's an opening.
Well, also, we were saying that the council chair serves on all the committees. So that was something we pulled in for the Building, Fire, Residential, and WUI Code Committee. So the 7th slot at the moment, as I view it for the conversation, should run to the council chair.
No, I'm on there in number 3.
He's on there already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
It should just say council chair. Yeah. So I'm hearing Tom handy then for number 7, and then we can reassess when we bring in a new council member for plumbing. Is that okay? I think that mass. Okay. I believe that's it, right?
This is a duplicate, so we've already gone over the legislative committee. The executive committee is composed automatically based on the composition of the other committees. And so is the work group of economic impact, is composed of the council chair and the chairs of the tags. And so there's might be some updates here, but we don't need to discuss it. Staff can take care of that as we clean this up and get it ready to post.
Okay. Thank you. Are we ready to take action on the package? Is anyone not clear on any of the tags of the committees? Okay, let's try a voice vote. All those in favor of accepting the committee and tag assignments as shown on the screen and discussed today, signify by saying aye.
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 And if you need a motion, I'll make that motion.
Well, that probably would be best. Yes, go ahead. So moved by Tom.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you for the catch. Okay, now all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is those are approved. Thank you. Can we jump to the back to the agenda, please? How's everyone doing? Or, do we need a break? We're at 1 hour here. I think we can keep going, right?
Yes.
Okay, just giving a chance for Dustin to catch up here. Okay, we're through appointments. We're going to move into agenda item 7 and talk about the code cycle adoption. So Dustin, I guess I can just throw it to you. I might set this up just a little bit. Is that okay, Dustin?
That is fine by me.
Okay. So we've had many discussions in committees and the full council on the code adoption schedule. The intent of this agenda item today is now we have new knowledge. So where we left it at a fairly recent council meeting was we were not, as a council, taking action on changing the implementation date. The implementation date is obviously important because that has to be in, to my understanding, sections of the Sierra 102 in each of the codes that actually gets solidified in there and it gets filed into Sierra 102. We also update our calendar, and then post it on the schedule. So our adoption date, our implementation date, and of course the schedule of all the tags and so forth. Often we see those in the bar or the Gantt-like charts. And so today that's what we're doing. We're acknowledging that it is unlikely that there will be a bill submitted that would change the ability for the council to not sit through the legislative session next year. Therefore, that implementation date can no longer sit at November 1st, 2026. It would have to occur after the legislative session. And then from there, I believe Dustin is going to present then a proposed adoption schedule that is backed out of that date. Did I get anything wrong, Dustin?
I think that you've covered the synopsis there pretty well. And, for what I'm sharing here, I'm not proposing to show what happened in the past for the code cycle. It's just drawn from today forward. And so talking with staff about our capability to get everything across the line, we feel that we can get everything across the line with a 2-month push out from I guess, let me rewind a little bit. The plan was to, at this council meeting, bring the full CR 102 package forward for blessing for filing. So right now we have code language that has been blessed by the council to file towards CR 102. Something new that I was wanting to bring to the process this cycle was a approval of the economic impact statements that are also required to be filed with the code language that goes to the code advisor. And so with the codes, we're significantly down the road on the drafting of what the language is that goes into the WAC. And then the work that we're putting into the Economic Impact Statements and Regulatory Fairness Act statements is taking longer for staff to get it across the line. But I also feel that what we're bringing to the table in that regard is a better product than we have brought forward in the past. And I was heartened to hear at the MVPE committee this last month that the economic impact statement we brought for the mechanical code was considered a good improvement to what has been put forward in the past. And so we're bringing that same format. We've heard some feedback on what we brought to that meeting. For example, bringing a table of contents for specific proposals so that somebody could say, I'm interested in this one, and jump to that part of the report. And a couple other comments, but the table of contents I felt was a really good addition to that one. And so suffice to say, right now we're not done with those reports and we need significant time. to get them across the finish line. Also acknowledging that at the end of this adoption process, once the council's done saying, yes, file CR 103 for permanent rules, a publication process has to go forward. In the 2018 code cycle, the SBCC was still producing insert pages for local jurisdictions to insert into their code books that they're purchasing. And there's been a shift from that to producing custom codes that contain all the state amendments in one document so that, you know, an insert page doesn't fall out or, you know, there's not confusion. I remember when I moved to Washington that I grabbed a code book and I said, this is the code, this is what we do, right? And then I had to be cognizant of the insert pages. So not every book that's floating around there has the insert pages there. And it's a, in my view, a service to be able to produce those custom codes. So you have one text that you have to go to move forward. But in the 2021 code cycle, there was a tremendous amount of man hours put in to the drafting of the proofs that go out to ICC for publication. They publish both digitally and in physical copies. And so hearing from the stakeholders that are participating in our meetings, a delay in our adoption has been asked that we need to delay the implementation, but that's not what I'm trying to point out here. There's a lot of work to get the draft work done for these publications as well. And, you know, at the outset of this code cycle, it was my hope to do a lot of the work within the documents that would be submitted as the proofs to ICC so that a lot of the draft work was already done. And then it quickly got to where we couldn't bring those amendments and the discussions into those documents in a way that was going to be digestible for everybody. So we are not necessarily starting from scratch, but we're not starting from, you know, significant completion either. So we have a lot of work to do to get the publications across the line. You'll see I have the bar here at the bottom indicating code publication, and it starts before what I'm indicating as a proposed filing deadline for the CR 103P. It would be draft work needs to start as soon as the final adoption vote is made, because at that point we're not anticipating changes to the code. We might have some small revisions that are editorial in nature that go to the code reviser, but we should be able to incorporate those as we start drafting the codes. So getting back to where we are right now, we think that in 2 months' time, pushing out, we can get the packages out there. It is still a heavy lift for staff to get it there. And, you know, if it was me pressing an easy button for staff, I would like to suggest 3 months. But then looking at the end of our timeline to get all that across the line, the publication draft work needs to happen 2 months before the publications are asked for to be ready. So in order to bring publications to the market at the end of December, we need to have the draft work done by the end of October. There might be a little bit of room for reducing that, but that's the advertised timelines from ICC. And so pushing out 1 more month to ease staff draft work right now will burden us further in the draft work for the publications. And so what I have proposed here is essentially a 2-month push out from today's date, but it doesn't actually give staff a full 2 months to bring that forward. It would be my desire to bring the economic impact statements before the standing codes committees. And so you'll see I have a line here right underneath the CR 102 drafting row that is committee meetings for CR 102 and economic impact statements. That has to happen a week before the council meeting. And it would be my hope that we can bring those ready to post for everybody at least a week before. Ideally, we would give a lot of time. There's a lot of content for folks to digest in these meetings. And, you know, right now, if we bring it in a week before the standing codes committees, it's essentially a month and a half for staff to bring that to bear. It's going to be a lift, and I'm hesitant to say I can guarantee that staff can get that done. But I am willing to try and bring all the resources I have available to me, which is essentially just man hours and time, to that task. But seeing the hill we have in front of us for the publication stuff, this is the best median that I think we can bring forward. And so if we were going to push out a third month, it's going to bring some more burden to us at the end, but it would give room for staff to have better time for quality product on our CR 102 filing, which is, in my opinion, needs further work from what we're doing right now. But right now I'm proposing bring the CR 102 and economic impact statements to our March council meeting. And then with a filing deadline of April 1, and it might help to show a calendar I have prepared, and you might see this on our my background. I keep it there just for a quick reference.
Hey, Dustin?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I appreciate this, and I think we can get very deep into this, but I also want to, kind of bring it back up high level if it's okay.
That's okay.
To focus on first hearing from the council, and then we will take public testimony on it. But I want to make sure that we frame this properly today. We are going to bring this to the public on course correcting on this calendar. Our task here is to look at the two critical dates as a council, the adoption and the implementation, and then update our calendar and post it to the website. There's a lot of detail in here we can get into, but I also want to make sure that we have the opportunity before we get into a lot of detail, or whether we should and need to get into a lot of administrative detail today, and rather focus on the very specific critical dates. Sorry to interrupt you, Dustin. Is that okay if I take a couple questions from the council?
Perfectly fine. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah. I have a few things, but the main one to bring up right now is clarification that the implementation date of Monday, May 3rd is relatively solid. We can't move it ahead because we got to wait for the legislative session next year to end. We don't think we want to move it out any, and I don't think that there is a need to. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that a correct statement?
Yes, the legislative session ends at the end of April, somewhere around the 20th to 23rd.
Okay.
But I don't have a hard date on that at this point. So instead of, we know it will end in April. And so I picked the first business day of May for that.
Okay. So I think that's a really important date for everybody in the industry to be aware of, this is changing that implementation date, which is, I think we still have it officially as November 1st. This would be officially moving it out to May 3rd, I believe.
Correct.
Second comment, the time between August 5th and May 3rd. So right now, August 5th, you're showing filing the CR 103P. That is, if I do my math right, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. That 9 months is to allow for code publication and education. And we have heard from the public that it is important to allow for a reasonable amount of time to educate both designers, building officials, et cetera, on the new code language. My personal opinion is 9 months is plenty. And so I just want us to consider between, the schedule that is shown right now, the March date is, Dustin is a little concerned about that. So if we shifted all of the lines 1 month and looked for a September 5th CR 103 filing, that gives Dustin and staff some certainty that they could be done. And the only thing that it does is it takes a month out of that 9-month publication and education. So number one, I just wanted to get out there clearly that the schedule that we have, the implementation date is May 3rd. The adoption date, which is less critical, is shown as 8/5, and I am actually wondering if we move all of that and make it September 5th. So I'll end there. I have one more topic to bring up, but that can probably be at the end. So
Okay, thank you. A couple more council members, and then I'll take public comment. Chell?
If I recall correctly, last cycle we had two building code council workshops. I'm wondering if one to cover all of the codes is sufficient. Right now we have a single one in there. So we get all this information by 5/9, and it possibly goes to committees or others to kind of sift through it and find there'll be for and against things, and then there'll be some technical things that are, suggestions or improvements or whatever. It'll probably go through some committees to kind of get through that. And then we have a single workshop to do that. And last time I think we had two workshops, so I'm gonna suggest that we consider two. They were a week apart last time. I don't think, that would necessarily affect the schedule, but I think we should anticipate that two workshops would probably serve us and the public better.
Okay.
May I respond real quick?
Go ahead, Dustin.
There's definitely room for two workshops. So we'll notice that between the workshop and the CR, the council meeting, we have a month in between there. Right now, they're targeted for the regular council meetings that we have on our schedule right now. So there's definitely room for it in there. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I built into this drafting of this, and is built into the previous ones as well, but time for staff to make changes to the CR 102 before we come to that council meeting for the final adoption. So it would be my idea that at the final council meeting here towards the bottom, that no changes are introduced to that filing that we're bringing there, and that right on August 5th, if we keep what we've got here drafted, we're not anticipating big changes there. So from the 24th to August 5th, we got a week in a couple days in between there. So we could make some final modifications potentially, but if the code revisor doesn't get that back, they have a 2-week turnover, maximum is what they advertise. We typically get it back a lot shorter than that. But if we made changes at this final council meeting, there is potential for that August date to be missed. It doesn't mean much for the drafting or the implementation date, but I want to stick to these timelines as much as possible. And the next filing date after August 5th would be August 19th, 2 weeks down the road. So it wouldn't be necessarily detrimental to the entire process if we had some small changes at the final meeting, but it would be my hope that through the workshops that we're doing before this final council meeting, we have the final polished product. And so I'm totally willing to bring in multiple workshops.
Okay, and I think the critical thing here is there's always room for special meetings. There are some important dates here about filing and so forth that are really critical to get on here. So
Can I
there's
ask a
flexibility.
follow-up question?
Go ahead.
So then would we be voting at the workshops on preferred packages such that staff would know what to put into the draft CR 103?
I think that we would be empowered to do that, but I honestly don't recall voting occurring at the previous 2021 workshops.
Yeah, I think the voting happened at the final council meeting, or the council meeting just before, like a week before the final or something like that. So, in order to give you all staff certainty about what the CR 103 final is going to be, we would need to vote on stuff X number of days or weeks ahead of that. So I'm just trying to back out if the CR 103 final adoption on 7/24 is a final, there's maybe a few word tweaks, but nothing other than that, then we need to really vote on directional things and other tweaks a certain number of days ahead of that you can probably tell us, Dustin.
Right. Well, right now the workshop is slated to coincide with a council meeting, and that wasn't the standard during the 2021 cycle. They came as a special meeting outside of the regular council meeting.
Okay, I think we could anticipate more meetings around this time and getting those on the calendar because it's prime vacation season. I think is critical for the public and for the council members. And I would anticipate that if, and it is a question to you, if the final vote on 724 is, we have everything kind of done ahead of that, then when's the vote need to happen on directional things, bigger things, ahead of the 724 meeting, such that you can get all the drafting done by 724?
It would have to happen at the workshop meetings. So as any changes were done in response to public comment, we're not trying to make substantive changes. If there's rational public comments, we can make those changes, but we're supposed to have non-substantive changes going into, so editorial things primarily. And ideally we aren't bringing a lot of content shifting at this final stage after we go through workshops and in that. So like you said, some additional meetings are probably in order to bring it across the finish line in a complete package for the final council meeting to file the CR 102. Or sorry.
Okay. And I would love to schedule those meetings very soon because we want a quorum and we want all the council members to be there, and scheduling things in July is, full of landmines for vacations that, that's when a lot of people are on vacation. So that's my request, is to schedule those very soon and schedule enough meetings that we can reasonably get through this based on what we know from past cycles. And I'm happy to help think through that.
Okay. We can definitely put placeholders on it. Thank you for that, Shell. Go ahead, Jay.
A couple of questions and a comment. First, when you're talking about remaining 2024 code adoption schedule, for clarity, can you say what is in this schedule and what is not, given we have several things on parallel paths right now? Want to understand, is this group one? Is this single exit? Is this multifamily? And what's the group two schedule?
So this would be group one and group two. As far as the content of that, the single exit multiplex housing has been on a parallel path that has not been viewed as needing to come across within the same package. But with the delays we're experiencing now, there is some desire to bring those into the CR 102 package. We don't have a motion to do that at this point, but that is there is availability for that to happen. So the single exit multiplex housing would be a group of content that would be added to the CR 102 if the momentum continues for that. The other parts of that that aren't considered for inclusion in the CR 102 package and not for the main rulemaking would be the temporary emergency shelters and dwelling unit size topics. And those would follow a separate filing path. This is not displayed on this particular diagram right now. And there might be future meetings out past these dates that we're looking at, because those are not ready to bring to CR 102. The single exit multiplex housing work is in what I would say a 90 to 95% complete. We are anticipating a meeting next week for that, where we're hoping to bring a recommendation from that group to bring to the appropriate codes committees and move that on up, and then get the council meeting in February to ideally make a decision on whether that should be included in our main body of rulemaking.
Great. Great to hear that we're syncing on the vast majority of all our work on this particular schedule. And then the second comment, just concur with Chell that for optimizing the work, it would be better to start thinking about special meetings in May and June versus pushing out into July and August. I think we should keep to that July 24th meeting as a final meeting, and willing to take on special meetings to ahead of that to make that happen. Thank you.
If I may, real quick, one of the issues that we encountered for staff overload in the last code cycle was after the hearings concluded, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to bring the product as a result of those. So we have to first intake all written public comment that's coming in through the hearings period, or the comment period, which you see labeled as April 1 through May 8th. And then the end of that one is the public hearings that we have to have on the east and west side of the state. May 5th is a Tuesday, and so we would be looking for 4 days of hearings in that week to come across on May 8th to close the comment period. And then the actual hearings that we have require us to do transcripts, and we're not allowed to use AI and things like that. We do have some transcripts that come from our meetings that we do, but they come with a lot of errors in them. So there's a lot of time dedicated towards making those transcripts of those hearings available, and then we have to compile the comments in a way so that we can address the comments in a organized fashion, so that the council can say we're making a change because of this comment, or this is why we feel we don't need to make a change in response to this comment. And some of the comments are either just in general support or opposition of code changes. So the council can make the changes as a result of those public comments, and there's just a lot of time to prep for the digestion of the comment period.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I want to take 2 more comments from the questions from the council member, and then Patrick's been patiently waiting. So go ahead, Katie and Roger.
Thank you. So I don't, this is for Dustin and I don't know, maybe Krista, but do the comments come in, do they start coming in on April 1st, or are they all coming in on May 8th? Because there's sort of that like deadline thing that happens. And I'm just wondering, so that was one question, is that because you guys do an amazing job of putting everything into those spreadsheets and counting everything. And so, but if it's all coming in that last week, I'm kind of wondering if that's kind of built into this like already. And then also, given something like that, nobody responded to Roger's request about pushing it a month. And I wonder if it seems like that time between getting the comments and workshopping everything and then drafting, I just wonder if pushing it a month and then that 9-month period does seem like our longest amount of time. But I'd just like to hear your comments about that, Dustin or Krista or anybody that's worked on that and seen those comments come in.
Similar to the code proposal windows that we open, the majority of the content comes in at the 11th hour. Yes, we do get stuff starting at the beginning of these windows, but the bulk of the material comes through right at the end of the comment period. So while we're doing the public hearings, we are still receiving public or written comments as well. And so the time to address that is built into this. I've drafted essentially a month of time for staff to go through that, and there's actually more like 2 months based on what I have here. And it took a lot of effort for staff to get that across in the 2021 code cycle. And so I wanted to make sure there's plenty of time so that we can post these comments, because if we come to these workshops and it's the first time everybody's read the comment, sheets that we're going to produce, it's not an effective use of our time if nobody's had time to think about the comments that we received, especially the written ones. During the public hearings, we have good attendance and people are listening at that point. But when we have to read stuff, it takes time to read it, and then, time to prepare, responses to that. So I built some time into it to get us to the workshop phase. But we could probably bring some workshops to bear before the June 26th workshop date and a little bit after as well.
And so what about this idea of pushing it a month? Because that would kind of push us, maybe this vacation thing is real, and I want you guys to get vacation. Is that not possible?
I mean, in my view, it's possible, but the issue is then, how much time we have to draft. And I agree that, once the CR 103P is filed and out there, we have the full content. People could take that and extrapolate what they need to for trainings and implementation. But also what we're hearing is we're pushing that burden onto the end users as well. And which is why I've proposed the schedule as is. I would, for my workload, would love to push out one more month, but I am also hearing from our constituents that, having that final code text in hand is really the desired product to outcome from this. And having, if it comes out at the end of 2026, there's enough time sitting through that legislative session for people to get that, work with it, start training, and be ready to implement at the May timeframe.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Roger, then Patrick, I promise.
Yes, and I will bring up, I'll just respond to Katie's 1 month. I still go back to, there's a lot of stress between January and March in this schedule. There's the 2 month time frame, and then there seems to be a lot of stress on the line items that are set for June and July. And I still think moving the CR 103P filing to September, I don't think that impacts the publication and education at all, in my opinion. We're this council that has a whole lot of work that has to get done, and we want to make sure that we do it properly. It seems to me like we're squeezing our work and allowing a generous amount of time for publication and education. That's my personal opinion. I am sure that the public may very well have comments on that. But the second item, Todd, and Dustin brought this up, is the single exit multiplex housing. Yes, it is separate. It does not have to go along with the CR 102. We have been trying very hard to have it ready, and in fact, we approved it at our last meeting. We were aware that this schedule was pushing that some, and so there is some what I'm going to term as minor cleanup that we are going to try to do at the meeting next week. My assumption is that our February 26th date, it's a council meeting, first at the BFRW and then at the council meeting, that we will pass along 2 proposals, one for the single exit, one for the multiplex housing, so that it can get worked into the CR 102. My only challenge is by legislation, one of them, both of them, there are deadlines for when we take action to adopt. There's some flex. I don't know what that specific definition is, but we may need to address that actually sooner. One of them is supposed to be done by July 1st. So we will need to deal with that, and maybe we need to get Dirk's weigh in on that. I think the intent of the legislation is that it is incorporated in the next code cycle. So anyway, the single exit multiplex housing, we are 98% done, in my opinion. We expect it to be in front of the full council at the February meeting, and then we can loop it all in.
Yeah, and just for Roger, I had assumed that as a separate adoption if needed. So I think that's possible in my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. We'll go to public comment. Patrick, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. For the record, again, this is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington. First, I just want to ask for a reminder with the webinar format across all state building council meetings, if you can make sure to ask for public comment before taking action. I know you did it for this item, but you missed it on a couple items today, and a couple of the other meetings I've been on, that's been an issue. So just a reminder there. When it comes to the schedule, we understand if the council needs to delay again. But as we have asked before, please have 12 months between adoption and implementation. Um, the BIW, we provide training for our members and others, and we need to create training material, plan out reserve space for in-person trainings across the state, advertise, get people registered, schedule multiple staff members and trainers time as well. And that's hard to do until the code is finalized, which doesn't occur until final adoption. And then the SBCC has a poor track record of staying on schedule. So we don't really want to reserve space ahead of time when things just keep shifting. As a tag member, I have some questions about what the council's intent is to include some of the erroneous proposals that are still being worked on. I know the single exit multiplex tag was mentioned specifically, but I didn't realize that there was a few proposals that the council had sent back to the IRC tag for review. Is it the council's intent to try to get all of the remaining code language that's still being worked on intended for the 2024 code to have that included in this CR 102, or do you want that have be a separate process? Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Patrick. No, it's intended to get into this year 1 and 2. So we're on schedule in terms of the council action, and then we're adjusting now towards these adoption and implementation dates. So um, just for everyone, so just to make sure everyone understands, there are 4 legislative actions that we are now going to fold into the final package here. But we don't need to get in the weeds right now on whether they're in this year 102, the bundle this year 102, or those are separate legislative mandate ones. So okay.
We have one more hand up in the attendees.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to make a comment. I would respond to Patrick and say I'm in agreement with him with regards to the amount of effort that needs to go into preparing training materials and getting them out to the public, arranging events and all that. So we do advocate for as much time as possible. The other element is that we are also going to be upgrading or updating the commercial energy code compliance web tool. And so that does take quite a bit of time to update that. And although we can start making progress based on the CR 102, we won't make a significant progress until the final adoption, because it's very expensive to make changes when you are programming a website. So just wanted to make that everybody aware that that is another detail. It's not just training and tech support, but also development of compliance tools that takes time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think what we've asked in the past, and I'll ask again, is everyone submit your reverse engineered time frame, and it needs to be understanding and realistic so that we can properly pick that date. Patrick, I hear you. 12 months is not though aligned with what what we need in from adoption to implementation. So, but thank you for registering that. It'll be noted. But please submit then. Actually, what's most helpful to the council and to the staff is actual time frames to accomplish this work. So thank you. And Lisa, that was helpful on the consequences if you have to redo. So any information you get to us, it will be noted. Thank you. Okay. I don't see any other hands from the public. Any other comments from the council? Is it our intent today to take action to say this is to our best knowledge, our calendar that we want to post and direct the staff towards these adoption and implementation dates? There's some discussion about changing the adoption date, so I'll leave it to the council to propose changes. Go ahead, Shel.
I think the calendar looks workable to me. Regarding Roger's question about whether the CR10P, CR103P filing is 8.5 or 9 something, I guess I don't see how that's particularly germane. I think staff will get it done when they get it done. So I don't know that that's a date. I guess that's a question for Dustin is like, does it matter whether we on this calendar put 8.5 or 8.20 or 9.3?
I would say it's that's not the important dates. The important dates are the final council meeting. Like if we wanted to push that out a month, we could give some more time in the rest of this glide slope down here. But the filing date here is fairly arbitrary. And once we have the final rules, this is just a deadline by the code revisor. There's potential that if we're ready with all the workshop and drafting that we're trying to do to bring to that final council meeting, we could potentially file on that day of the council meeting, but it would be essentially be as if we filed on the 5th for when it comes out in the register.
Okay. I guess I did a little draft study of when we would have stuff from council between 5.9 and 6.26, and that's a month and a half to get through, potentially hundreds of comments, some substantial, some tiny, and perhaps 2 meetings of tags or committees to vet those, and then a couple of workshops among the council where the council would need to vote if we wanted to have it largely ready before 7/24. I think it looks workable to do so, but I would kind of like to see more detail before we promise something. I think what I'm willing to do today is vote on the implementation date and that this is our draft schedule, but I kind of want to revisit this next month and have all the interim pieces filled in so that we have more detail as a council that this is a realistic and workable schedule. So I'm willing to vote on the implementation date as May 3, 2027, and to vote that this is a tentative schedule for how to get it done, but I also want to revisit it next month and have more detail on how we get from here to there. That's not a motion at this point.
No, and until in my understanding, the most important thing is that we are able to post something on the website. So yes, technically it can be updated again, but let's get to our best expectation here. Go ahead, Roger.
Sorry. Yeah, I guess I will reiterate, even our one public comment talked about the fact that we don't have a very good track record of meeting our schedule. And that I think that speaks volumes about, I think that is correct on our past record. And that's why I am pushing for moving everything out 1 month so that we have a lot more confidence that we are going to make those dates and we don't have to go back and modify the dates again. And I think that moving everything out a month gives staff ability these first now 4 months to get the work done. It just kind of gives us additional time throughout the whole schedule. We're already talking about it being tight here and tight there, and why not move it out another month? I also want to address Patrick's comment about the time period between adoption and implementation. Speaking as a structural engineer, the reality is, if May 3rd is the date, the month of March and April is going to be a huge scramble to get buildings or permits submitted under the current code. The actual hard work on this code is not going to happen until May, June. So I think that the education part, giving 3 or 4 months for publication and 3 or 4 months for education is sufficient.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Okay, Angela.
Yeah, as for speaking to training for the end users, I had also talked to Dustin about this timeline, and I think that it can work. Training can be developed from the CR 103. I mean, obviously, it's not the written code, but again, with this timeline, it does appear that at least the published online codes could also be available a few months prior to it actually being implemented. There's some leeway with that, and so yes, I get Patrick's point as far as putting together the training and things like that. But as you know, a member of an extremely large group that provides training for building officials and city people and architects, engineers, we've determined that we can be prepared and use this schedule.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Okay, Ben.
Thanks, Todd. I guess question for Dustin on the economic impact statements and all of that research. I think we saw from the review of the UPC, and that was the only one we've reviewed so far, unless any of the building code ones have been reviewed. But it seemed like a lot of work, and I guess my concern would be, are we going to have all of those prepared for the March committee meetings to review and give people enough time to review them ahead of the meetings? So really, like, we're probably hoping to post those the beginning of March or so. So that's a month to do that amount of work, and I don't know, it seems like a lot. And if it's something we need to have reviewed and take council action on prior to the CR 102 filing, then yeah, I just want to know how close we are with those at this point. Thanks.
We're pretty far out. That since the MVPE meeting where we reviewed the UPC, there's been lots of stuff happening with council business, and there's been not a significant amount of mileage made on the products since then. So just without getting into fine detail on this, staff is right around just past halfway done if we're talking about percentages of total product done with all these codes. So we had the UPC that we did have a review on. We're going to do some small updates to that to take into account some of those comments. We have the IMC. We had some file handling issues that cropped up and prevented us from bringing that to the MVPE, but that one is done. And so, like, for me, I've got a lot of work to do on the IRC, IBC, and IFC, and Krista similarly has a lot of work to do on the two energy codes. And if we had the WUI code involved on this one as well, we would be even further behind on our work on that one. And so, like I was saying, it is a huge lift right now for me to try to advertise that we'll be able to publish. I have it indicated here as March 6th, and that's a week before the committee meeting scheduled in March. And then, once if we can get them done by that time, yes, we're set for the rest of this timeline to pretty much flow. Right now, the big linchpin that I see is where we're at right now, in not being able to guarantee that we can do that. Even pushing out to April, we're like you said, this is a month and a half from now till March 6th, and it's there's a lot to do. You're accurate. That is a big task for us to bring what we're trying to bring on these reports forward. And I would love to see a April timeline for that. And even then, it's still a big lift for us to bring it in April. But I'm more sure on an April timeline than I am on a March timeline. As we have heard, we can continue to shift things, but at this point, I am wanting to get I said it last time we made the adjustment to the schedule. I want to get a for sure timeline that we can meet moving out from here. And there's a lot. I've got significant time, especially with legislative session happening right now. There's a lot of activity, and it's hard to dedicate time during just the normal business hours to get that. So I've got a lot of time outside of normal business hours to bring this forward in the timelines that I have here drafted.
Okay, thank you. Angela, do you still have your hand up? Okay, Tom, please.
Yeah, speaking of legislative session, there's the bill that was kind of revived from last year, ESSB 5552, about kit homes, and they're going to want, at least the way it appears to read, is they're going to want rulemaking done on that before March 31, 2027. I'm not sure if that'll need to be included in that package for implementation on, a month later or not. I think we're starting to get clarity on that. Maybe somebody else has better insight on that, though.
Yeah, and I think we can maybe circle back a little bit in the legislative committee and give an update on that. But I do see that as a special effort. So whether or not it can be included or not, it would be a different.
And just a quick analysis on including in the publication package for physical books, likely not capable. Because we could potentially bring the rulemaking done before we get to that deadline of March 31 of 27. But it's likely not going to be in time to be submitted to ICC for those initial publications. After we're done with that, though, if the publications are already past that final point, we push the button to say print these. There is all the availability in the world to get that to ICC, and it will be available in the online codes.
Good question, Tom. Let's circle back on that as a special case. I don't think anyone intends to integrate that into the 2024 base code. So, okay, Katie.
Well, I was just wondering, is it worse to have to change this timeline or to have a month less of training time, like for industry?
I think that is the question we're trying to balance.
Right. I'm just trying to be like, this is what the issue is. Like, this is so I just like to know what people think about that, because I
think from the comments today, and I do see a hand from Micah. So let's take Micah's public comment. Go ahead, Micah.
Thank you, Chair, for being recognized. I appreciate the revised schedule here. I think two of the more important timelines that you all need to vote on today is going to be the implementation date and also the opening and closing of the public comment period. I believe those are required by RCW to be voted on, even though the whole adoption schedule being voted on is beneficial. To the points about the training, I do believe and agree with Roger. I think 3 months is probably adequate. However, that sometimes comes down to timing. Right now, with the timing of this, it would be actually in line with the WABO Annual Education Institute. That's the Washington Association of Building Officials. Every year they do an annual training for a week for code officials and others. I think it's open to anyone. But they have that scheduled out usually 3 years in advance. So just because it works this time doesn't always mean 3 months is adequate. Having been involved in the code adoption for the last cycle, I knew quite a bit about it, but it still took me a significant amount of time to develop the training. I did one of the primary trainings for most of the codes outside of the energy code for WABO. I want to say the first class was well over 100 people. So it's a lot. 3 months does work, but sometimes that only comes down to timing. I agree with Patrick. He mentioned just getting venues and things like that, scheduling and developing it. But I appreciate the revised schedule. If we could get a vote at least on the public comment period and the implementation.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Micah. And while we have you, is there anything else in terms of that we're not thinking of with cities that adopted special amendments like Seattle, or is there anything with ICC hearings that we should be aware of here that might interfere?
The public comment hearings for The 2027 codes are in April of this year, so it's right in the middle of the public comment period for SBCC. I don't think that'll be a problem. I know some of the advanced amendments we are taking here, they're also being voted on somewhat similar at the national level. One of those, of course, is embodied carbon. So we'll see where that lands. So far, that one is not being moved forward at all at the national level. They don't feel that's the right place for code officials, but that is happening the third week of April. I want to say the 17th, and I take that back. The 19th through the 26th, I believe, is when it's scheduled currently. So that's it for ICC, and then after that, it'll be the consensus vote. So it's right in that time frame. So I think it'll be okay. Thanks for asking, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Micah. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion, Todd, and in general, it's going to be to move everything out a month, and I base that on, Dustin just said the economic impact statements is they're 50% done at this point and struggling. He expressed some concern about making those March dates. Economic impact has been something that we have, the public has been concerned with in the past. How valid are they? How much effort is put into them? So making sure we have enough time to look at those is important. And actually, just Micah's comment, moving everything out, all of a sudden now the comment period is May through June, so it no longer conflicts with the current IBC dates. Not that I think that that's critical. So I would make a motion, and I don't know how detailed the motion needs to get, but it's basically this schedule moved out a month. So the first three lines are the meetings in April. April 6th, and then the BFRW or the standing committee meetings for the second line of the April meeting and the April SBCC meeting. The CR 102 filing deadline, I'm going to assume, is 5/1, and I don't know if that's a business day or
It's
what.
being put on the screen as you speak.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at my version or my copy. Hearings, June, the first week of June. Workshop through July. The council meeting, which I think was mentioned as a very important date to set, because I think that is officially adopting. That would be the August meeting. And the CR 103 filing is early September.
The first available.
And I'm going to say, and the implementation date is Monday, May 3rd, 2027.
Okay.
So that would be my motion.
And then thank you for that, Roger. And just to clarify, and Dustin, are you prepared? I see you're writing September 2nd. That's the filing date?
Yeah, so I ran out just from a filing deadline from the CR 102. I still need to work back from the committee meetings, but essentially run out for a week before the April. It would be March 30 here.
Okay.
And then we got the 4/3. And then the council meeting would be there. I've got it filled in up for all that timeline, pushing out 1 month.
Okay.
Dustin, I'm, if I may, I'm looking at the schedule that's currently on the SBCC website. And I want to make sure I'm on the right month. The April council meeting is showing as the 17th. So that third line, you have 4/27, I think.
I hit the wrong button.
Okay. And then the standing committees are the 10th. Do you have that? Yeah. And then,
okay. Yeah, I was looking at my quick reference calendar and I picked the wrong week. So give me one moment. I'll pop these correct dates in there.
it's 4/10, and then the week
I
before.
would second the motion once it gets the date get finalized.
Okay.
April 3rd would be that first line, if that's a week before the standing committee meetings.
Okay, so we'll give Dustin a chance to catch up here, confirm all these dates. And I'm going to clarify, when I push back on the 12 months from between adoption and implementation, while we have stakeholders obviously that would like to see certain, delays in some of the, and, especially the energy code, there are real timelines we want to know for that. And then there also is pressure the other direction, um, from the legislature, from practice, from the supply chain to see this implementation date happen. So, uh, know that there's pressure from both sides. So go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, thank you. The NHB Spring Leadership Meeting always happens June 9th through 12th, and we typically have a lot of members who are builders in Washington State that like to both attend and participate in the code hearings. So it'd be real nice if you could move that either a week before or a week after. And to response to Councilmember Katie Sheehan's question about what's better for the industry to change the calendar or to have significant time between adoption and implementation. Or I think she asked which one's worse, and I would say porque no los dos. It would be nice if you could adopt a calendar and then stick by it and have significant time between implementation. I don't know which one exactly is worse, but it will be. I will just note, council members complain about feeling like they not have enough time or they have to be rushed. The IRC tag was very rushed, but you seem to be quite comfortable in giving yourself time and delays and shifting things, but you don't want to shift that implementation date. For a lot of the industry, they're not aware of the intricacies of the rulemaking and what's coming on. And so that's a really hard date of you have to do things. All of your submittals have to comply with hundreds, if not thousands of pages of code. And so giving industry and educators significant time to take the finalized adoptions, which really won't be available in text form until the CO 103 is published, not even filed. It has to get published in the Washington State Register, and then they can start taking that and make their final changes if they're doing compliance software. 12 months is preferable. Right now, I think you're looking at like less than 9 or 8 months. That's going to be, very tight for the industry. And so on the commercial side, projects typically take longer, so the implementation date probably won't cause as much of an effect, but single family can happen much more quickly. And there will be folks who I think will be immediately interested in or needing to comply with the code when it goes into effect. So having time to make sure that they have training and education and compliance tools available is really important. And I'm sure a lot of people rely on the compliance tools from WSU, so making sure they have time as well. So that's my public comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Micah.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing member of the public after a motion's been made again. I would love to see, to Chael's point, maybe Chael can make a friendly amendment, a window for dates for the workshop instead of just a single date. That way there's an opportunity for more than one if possible. Thanks.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I maybe didn't pay attention enough there, Micah.
I was just saying if to Chael's point that I think there should be more than one workshop. That was very beneficial in the last cycle.
Okay. Yeah, I think
a window of dates instead of just a singular date. That would be optional if Roger or whoever second wants to make that.
That is fine. That's a friendly amendment that I'm fine with.
Yeah, I think that's valuable to schedule a meeting out and at least have the placeholder. Okay. Just a reminder, everyone, that there also will be committees and potentially even, tag input if desired by the council. So, but we don't need to schedule those right now. Okay, we are in a motion. Thank you for the reminder, Micah. Is there any other council input on this? And do we feel confident we have the dates, Dustin?
Yes.
Okay.
I got the dates. I got the dates finalized in there, and I have added a window for the workshops. It is a window from the end of the hearings through to the council meeting and in the next month. So there's several weeks available there for that, and I think that could be adequate for us. There is room for it to flow into the July month a little bit further, or sorry, the August month a little bit as we approach the council meeting there as well. So maybe I would propose then instead of the 7/24 as the end of that window to put it at 8/21 to coincide with the council meeting where we're trying to bring all that to bear.
Okay. And then in response, thanks for the comment on the hearings. There are 4 hearings, is that correct? So, and not everyone is going to have to sit through all those, and you don't have to attend both sides of the state. So,
And I had ideas to maybe reduce exposure on the hearings. You know, the statute requiring that we go on both sides of the state is a long-standing statute and has been around before the advent of the online meeting technologies that we so thoroughly embrace. Like right now, it's only staff in the physical location right now. I had ideas on maybe holding hybrid meetings where we could have the actual locations staffed, but have those meetings held at the same time in 2 locations of the state. But I don't know if that's attractive to anybody, and I think that there is input back from Dirk that would maybe not be strictly in accordance with the RCW, but that was a way that I thought we could maybe not have so many specific meetings, but it's just an idea on that in the future.
okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Did I hear that you said 4 total hearings, 2 on the east and 2 on the west?
Correct. I don't think we could hear all the codes in the one day, and that's what we did in the last code cycles. We had 4 hearings, and we also had a group 1 final adoption and a group 2 final adoption. So there's a lot of content to be handling right at the end of this process. But right now, as we see it, we need some extra time to do that. So 4 hearings to handle all the codes in both sides of the state.
Okay, thanks.
For now, we'll keep them scheduled and discuss that later. Okay. There's a motion on the table to accept the schedule as shown on the screen. Seeing no other discussion, let's try a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this schedule now is adopted and will be posted to the website. Thank you for the lengthy discussion and the education. Now we do need a break, so let's say we come back at 1:20, please. Thank you.
I'm sorry, when did you say?
Is 1:20
1:20.
acceptable?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We will monitor council members before we take action. Let's move into agenda item 8, our committee reports. We'll start with the executive committee. We did not meet to my memory. Is that correct?
Correct. We met when we were discussing to set the agenda, but that's all we did in the past on this one. But the one thing I wanted to, why I kept this one on here is to advertise that as we move through the rest of this year, I would like to engage with the executive committee to plan for the 2027 code cycle and invite our stakeholder groups to keep tuned to those meetings for that. And I don't anticipate that planning to begin in earnest until after we complete the filing. But that is a task I want to work with that group on throughout the second half of this year so we can make some improvements to the process and have a good plan moving forward.
Okay. Okay, good suggestion. Next would be legislative. We can ask our chair, Tom Handy, if you'd like to give us an update, please.
Yeah, we have been meeting every week. things change every week, things pop in, pop out. Couple of the things that we've been discussing most, of course, embodied carbon has seen a new revision to the primary bill regarding that. That's in play. There's a couple, both in the Senate and House, on scissor stairs. There's some performance-based code stuff for middle housing that's coming about. HB 2346. There's also, there's a bunch of things that are kind of a little bit similar, So we've got performance codes, we've got factory built structures in both the Senate and the House. There's some permit-ready residential plans, which kind of correlate to that a little bit as well. Kit homes, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, they all have a lot of kind of common components. So we're hoping that if all of these pass, or if some of them do, that will have some work that can be done that'll hit several of them at the same time. And then that one HB 2141 that kind of put a 10-year hiatus on building codes and then change everything to a 6-year cycle hasn't really seen any movement yet. So we're kind of prepared a little bit beforehand to talk about that, but since it hasn't moved, we're just kind of holding tight to see what's going to happen on that next. So I don't know if there's any questions or any other discussion. Dustin's got a great sheet that has all the bills that have any effect at all, that I'm sure he could share, and the hearing schedules and so on and so forth. Roger?
Yeah, I just would add those bills that are in the legislature that Tom mentioned often, they're basically saying State Building Code Council do something, like we did for the single exit multiplex housing. We have, as a legislative committee, tried to communicate to legislators to clarify the language, to basically say, implement it when you do the next code, not that you have to have it approved by July 1st or something that we've kind of run into. So we're hoping to smooth that out a little bit and make that a little bit more clear.
Yeah, one of the things that we do try to do is watch for things that are going to have a major impact on, the staff or, the council, and how much that we're expected to do in a certain time frame. And if there's ways to kind of smooth those rough edges out in that regard, we'll go ahead and try and do that. If there are something that's of a larger, more substantive nature that's going to really kind of throw a major cement in the glass china case here, then we're going to bring that, of course, to the council to discuss how we might attack that. So anyway.
Okay. I think that's a good summary. I think what I would add is, again, the legislative committee through action last year was given the authority to inform. So we keep using that word, that's the extent of the authority. And so the legislative committee is active and in responsive, in my opinion, to questions by the legislature staff. Some of those bills, Tom, you just mentioned, went through executive session while we are meeting, so I don't know the results. I'm sure some people on this call do, but we'll circle back with the legislative committee next week and address those. And then the only thing that's happened to my memory since our meeting yesterday afternoon was then a response out of that meeting back to Senator Wilson's office to say that no action was taken, but we are monitoring and understand that March 31st deadline, 2027 that you mentioned on the kit home bill. So we'll continue to monitor that as it moves into the House and bring it back to the council. But at this point, I guess it's fair to say there's no ask of the full council to take a position on any of the bills. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the BFRW committee did not meet in this last month.
And I'll just interject there to Patrick's point. We are taking public comment on this, so we are monitoring. I'm monitoring the attendees list. So if I see hands go up, so just it's an open invitation. If you do put your hand up, I'll recognize you. Okay, then no BFW MVPE committee.
Okay.
Do you want me to run that one, Tom?
Yeah. So I asked, I let Dustin know since I'm so new in that position, it'd be a disservice for me to try to give an update. So Dustin will do it.
Thank you, Tom.
All righty. So at the last MVPE meeting, we had intended to bring economic impact reports for both the IMC and the UPC to get the flavor of those reports kind of noticed to everybody out there. We had a snafu and we're unable to bring the IMC report. I misspoke earlier in the meeting and said we brought IMC, but we brought the UPC report to that group. I feel like it was well received by folks in attendance at that meeting. We heard some comments on ways we could improve it further, and we're hearing those and making some movement there. The other item that was on the agenda for that meeting was a opinion request coming from WABO relating to passage of a bill from the 2025 session that is talking about residential units brought into existing buildings and how the energy code is supposed to apply to those. So that is our next agenda item topic, but we brought it there to discuss and kind of introduce and talk about. And this is relevant to the Energy Code sections 505, talking about additions, alterations, and remodels. And the question that they're asking is, if the legislation says that you don't have to fully comply with the energy code, or not, the legislation doesn't say that, but there's speculation on it says how exactly the energy code applies to those buildings. And so there's been confusion in the enforcement side of the industry on that topic, and we're looking for a little bit of clarity. And at the time of the passage of the legislation, the analysis was that we wouldn't need to do any rulemaking to address that. And I would say that the stance on rulemaking for that still stands, but we'll looking for a little bit of clarity on what local jurisdictions might be looking for on that one.
And Dustin, obviously, let's circle back on that on agenda item 9. And I see a hand here. Mike, are we going to comment on that, or do you want to wait till agenda item 9 for that?
And so just to wrap this agenda or this portion of this agenda item up, the committee discussed that opinion, and instead of taking action on it to issue the opinion, it does relate to RCW and the code language, they decided to push it towards the full council for a larger discussion. And so that is the content of the MVPE committee. And so, yeah, is there any questions or comments?
Okay, well, again, let's hold on that topic, but any questions on the report? If not, then Dan, can you please help us remember on special committee of side yard setbacks?
Yeah, I think what we ended up with, we were looking at that there's nothing we we're going to do, and that we were going to look at it at the next code cycle for the 2027. So if my math is right with the 3 years.
Yeah.
But I think that's where we were at, is that we weren't going to make anything this time, but we're going to keep it open and look at the next code cycle for the 2027 cycle.
Yep, I think it was productive. We learned something, and
yeah, we learned a lot actually.
Yeah.
So
I am glad we did that. Yeah.
No, I think it's a good thing that I think it's a good. I don't know how much we've done in the past because I'm fairly new at this, but I think it's a good way to get people together and work things out. I think it's still important that we should look at it in 2027, but we deemed it not to get more work, which obviously we have an issue with right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think to recognize that this was kind of a test run on this special committee, which we haven't exercised much, and as kind of more of a research vehicle.
No, it was very productive though, and I think we've talked about it before. But yeah, nothing this time, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And thank you for leading that. Okay. Anything else on this agenda item and committee reports? I'm not seeing any hands from the public. Let's move into agenda item 9, which is the WABO opinion request.
So I have a draft here, and I just want to make sure everybody's aware we have a comment letter that's posted on the website for this as well.
Okay. I'm gonna, since I kind of pushed Mike off and wasn't sure if it was on this item, I also see Lisa. Is there any other introduction, or can I take a couple comments first and then we'll get into the?
I think let's take the comments. So in RCW 35, let's take the comments and then we can discuss further what we have in this draft opinion.
Well, saying that, Lisa, was it specifically on this topic? You had a.
Yes, I submitted a public comment on this.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll let Dustin then formally introduce this and then we can circle back. Is that okay?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty, so in RCW 35A.21, which is not a SBCC RCW, talks about I'm going to try to not just read verbatim what's on this sheet here, but talks about how when we're converting existing buildings to residential structures or adding residential units within these buildings, that full compliance with the energy code wouldn't necessarily be required. And I might be paraphrasing a little bit, not quite accurately there, but the RCW section prohibits non-residential, sorry, it prohibits jurisdictions from imposing the current energy code requirements. So if you have a existing building and they want to add the residential units, you're not allowed to ask them to upgrade that building to the current full energy code requirement, which is a little bit in contrary with the sections 505. This was raised to get some clarity for the jurisdictions because our analysis was that the jurisdictions were responsible for deciding how this would apply in their localities. The provided answer is that the energy code is applicable to these buildings, but if there's additional stuff that might be required for the building to comply within the local jurisdiction, that those additional items wouldn't be required. But there's I think this is a topic that will have some discussion here today. And I'm not the staunch expert that Krista is on the energy codes. But we have input from her on this one. I was trying to shelter her from the original drafting of this before the MVPE so she could stay focused on the Energy Codes 2024 drafting. And so we've had some brief discussion at the MVPE, and we have a draft answer here which says, Energy Code applies, but we're looking for some council input on this one.
Okay. Chell, do you have anything else to add to kind of frame this? And then we'll take a comment from Lisa.
Yeah, I have a framing piece for this.
Go ahead.
I think the RCWs here are not very specific, but if we're looking at RCW 35A 21440, which seems to be what this is about, the beginning of both of the sections that are relevant to the energy code or the codes are about code cities. They have nothing to do with the building code council. So if this is about 35A.21.440, there's nothing in here that impacts the state codes. And I can read that for you if you want, but it's specifically about, if you look 1A, code cities, blah, blah, blah. If you look at 2, through ordinance, blah, 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 it says code cities may not. It says nothing about what the council can or cannot do, should or should not do. So I would just want that to be clear for everybody here. This is about code cities. This is not about anything the State Building Code Council can or cannot do or should not do. I might be jumping to conclusions about which RCW. So I'd love to hear from Wabo which RCWs they're interested in for this.
Excuse me. Okay, yeah, thank you, Chell. That helps frame this better in our discussion, at the MVPE. Let's go to Lisa first, and then I see Micah's hand next.
Thank you very much for the opportunity just to share some of our observations about this. This came to our attention through some tech support inquiries that we've been receiving from building owners and also design professionals and jurisdictions who are trying to wrap their head around the implications of this RCW. And the RCW in question is, to Shell's point, it's 35A. .21.440. And so we just did a quick review of this to see if we can provide guidance through our tech support. And our conclusion is that there's some vague language in this RCW that makes it quite difficult to understand the scope. I did submit some comment in writing. I don't know if it is worth the time to just throw that up on the screen real quick, and I can point to a couple sentences. And this was just to frame our request from the council to provide some guidance on this so we can inform the design community correctly.
I'm popping that open. Give me just one moment here.
Okay, great. Thank you. And a lot of the details we identified, they're nuances, but nuances matter when it comes to, what's the scope. So if you scroll down to where I describe the three distinct project types, that's items 1 through 3 there, it refers to unchanged portions of existing buildings that have been used for residential purposes, unchanged portions of an existing building that's been used for previously permit approved conditioned space purposes, and then changed portions of any other existing building converted to new dwelling units. So those are the three distinct project or upgrade projects that it touches on. And then item 2G kind of gets into the details about this. And so we have a few questions about that we just wanted to bring to the council. If you could scroll down to that. Yeah, so number 2 of the list there, it makes reference to residential purposes. Our question to that is what is the scope of that? Is that, the IBC Group R section occupancies? So does it include, Group I? Does it include hotel, motels, or just multifamily? So that was kind of vague. And so there has been some questions about that on what existing building types it applies to. And then also with regards to previously permit approved conditioned space, is this all former code editions of the energy code, or is this just the last edition? So that part, again, was a little confusing. And then the other key detail, you can read through the rest of this. Number 4, the question there is, does this, if it talks about portions of buildings, but does this also include the systems within the building? So if you have new systems or altered systems, does the energy code then apply? So all the requirements in the energy code still applies to that. That was a question. And then if you scroll to the second page, item 6 is in reference to, if you go through there's on the left panel there, if you can scroll up to item number 2I under G. There, that one. So this indicates that this is like an alternative compliance approach. That the units don't have to meet the current energy code if it meets one of these 3 items. And item number 2I makes reference to the clean building standard. And our question about that one is that the clean building standard does have an EU-wide target based on climate zone for tier 1 lodging multifamily. So that's clear. But it does not have an EU target for tier 2, which are multifamily buildings between 20 and 50,000 square feet. And then also buildings that are less than 20,000 square feet, they're not required to comply with the clean building standard. So our question is whether the intent of item 2I is to allow only this energy code exemption for existing buildings where an EU-wide target is applicable. So those are our questions. Those are the things that just came to our attention as we've been talking to other folks who've been trying to wrap their head around this. And so we're looking to the council for some guidance on these particular details. Thanks for the time and the opportunity to share our observations.
Thank you, Lisa. We might have further questions here. So I'm going to go to Micah next. And then if any of the council members would like to comment, but then we got a couple more hands from Patrick and Greg. So let's go Micah first.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And thanks, Lisa and the MVE committee for looking at this. And I appreciate Lisa's letter, but I'm going to have to go back to the interpretation draft and also ask if Dustin will pull up Wabo's original letter. I don't think the question accurately captures what we were intending or looking for guidance on. And Lisa's letter goes way into the weeds of the actual language of that legislation that is now in RCW 34A. So Dustin, if possible, could you pull up that original letter? I noticed it was not put online for the meeting, and it's more specific to something. So what WABO is looking for and jurisdictions are looking for is what are we supposed to do? Not get into the language of what we're supposed to do or how it applies. But when you go to RCW 34A, the title
Micah, just to clarify, are you saying 34 or 35?
No, I'm sorry, 35A.
Okay,
Then I won't have all the numbers in front of me. I apologize. When you go to that RCW, I do have it open in another window, but I got to get there. When you go to the, go ahead. Somebody talking?
If you want, I can pull the RCW up for you if you like.
I got it, Dustin. I just had to get back to it. That RCW is 34A 21440 that says prohibitions on local regulation. And again, Todd mentioned that Dustin mentioned this is about code cities and adopting or amending. The question is whether or not this language only applies to enhanced energy codes. In other words, if a jurisdiction, let's just say Seattle or someone else, has a stretch code, and that means a code, an energy code that is beyond what the state building code council adopts. In other words, what's beyond 1927A or the WAC rules for the energy code. That is what we are reading is 35A is about. What we're having conflict with is what do we apply? In other words, this talks about current energy code. Is that currently adopted or enhanced energy codes by jurisdictions? Because all of you should be aware that jurisdictions are not required, even if they're a code city, to adopt any of the state building code. You all adopt the state building code. We are required by RCW 1927. Let me give you the right number. RCW 1927-050 to enforce what you all adopt. This legislation does not modify RCW 1927 or RCW 1927A or any of the rules that apply. So the question is, does this legislation or this RCW 34A only apply to any additional regulations that jurisdictions adopt above and beyond what the State Building Code Act encompasses? That's the clarification that code officials need, because the way they are reading this now and the clarification that the jurisdictions need is, does this only apply to enhanced codes? Because it doesn't modify 1927-050 that says we must enforce what you all adopt. In other words, we must enforce the currently adopt Washington State Energy Code and no enhanced regulations on these spaces as identified in the legislation. Does that kind of help provide some guidance? Again, this I appreciate Lisa's. That's way beyond what WABO is asking at this time. I think there's some additional clarification that would be helpful for jurisdictions based on Lisa's letter. But the clarification is, does this even apply to the Washington Energy Code or only to local regulations?
That's very helpful, Micah. Lisa, do you want to respond now, or would you like to take some more testimony?
Oh, I'll go ahead and comment, and thank you, Micah, because that is really helpful. Any information that we can gather from this discussion will be helpful for us, because the way this is being read in industry is that this is applying to the actual Washington State Energy Code. And so if that is the outcome of this, then that's very helpful for us to be able to explain that this really only applies to jurisdictions with a REACH code. And so thank you for that additional information. And then we look forward to hearing the conclusion of what the State Building Code Council determines.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you,
Lisa.
Lisa. Go ahead, Micah. Yep.
Just to add on that, I really, the question comes down to if this, and that's what we're asking the council as well, if this applies to the entire Washington State Energy Code, I guess the questions for jurisdictions comes down to which RCW are we going to violate, in my opinion. Is it 35A or is it 1927-050? We're being told to enforce, and then this is saying not to enforce, but only those things are adopted by your ordinance, which there are jurisdictions that don't adopt any ordinances. They just enforce as required by 1927 to enforce what you all have adopted. Thanks.
Okay. Before I go to more public testimony, Jay, did you have a question in there?
Yeah, I am remembering a discussion when we adopted the energy code about having compliance on this somewhere in 505, and I'm wondering if because Lisa had mentioned this was enacted for existing buildings in 505, and I am wondering if we could get references to that too, in addition to the RCW, because I am having trouble finding it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back. Thank you. Joe, you mind if I take for Patrick and Greg, or do you want to respond quickly? Okay, see the hand go down. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you. Yes, I would encourage the council to confer with Dierk. Hopefully he's still on before deciding to issue an opinion and what that opinion is, even if it's not, has no legal weight, technically speaking. Wouldn't want local jurisdictions to get bad advice on what their requirements are under this RCW. I think the expectation from builders would be that it would apply to the current energy code adopted statewide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Greg?
Yeah, Greg Johnson with the Vista. I was curious when this came up in the MVP committee. I wasn't familiar with it, so I just did some quick looking when I was at there. And I noticed a mission in both the original question and in the answer that wasn't noticed by anyone, was if you pulled up the original bill, which was HB 1757 for the, it actually doesn't just apply to that 35A.21.440. It also applies to 35.21.990. So that means it applies to all cities, code cities and regular cities, which is pretty significant detail. So I just thought I'd point that out since everyone keeps referring to code cities, and it actually modifies both different chapters of the RCWs. And so it applies to every same, almost identical change in both sections.
Interesting. Okay, so Dustin, you're pulling it up. Do you mind making that just a little bigger, please? If
yeah.
You're far faster than I am in pulling these up. Greg, is this what you're
That is correct. Greg, I appreciate you pointing that out and reminding us of that. You are correct in that it applies. But again, the question is, does it apply to the energy codes adopted by 1927 and 1927A?
Okay, wow. Okay, Shell, can you help us here, please?
Yeah, I'll say a couple things. The first is that, even in this section 2, it starts, what's the first word under 1A? Cities. And then if you go to the part that is 2, under here, cities may not. And then this has the same things as the RCW we were just looking at. So this is about cities and what they can and can't do. It has nothing to do with the state and the state energy code. Cities can't adopt things that violate these things. It says nothing about what the state can do, as far as I can tell. The second thing is, if you look at the 2021 Washington State Energy Code commercial, so to Lisa's question, I would say that to the extent that this applies, it applies to both the commercial and the residential energy codes that would cities would have adopted, but not the state. But within the commercial energy code, you have section 505, and section 505 is change of space conditioning, occupancy, or use. If you're changing something from, there's a 505.3, which is probably what you were talking about here. So if you go to 505.3, so changes in, then there's 3 things listed. Any space is converted from FSU to occupancy other than those, you have to brought up to full compliance with the code. Any space is converted to group R dwelling unit or portion thereof from another use occupancy, any group R dwelling unit or portion thereof. So there's a date in there to one of Lisa's questions, 2002, that could be relevant for this. However, there is something earlier in chapter 5 that basically says if you don't touch it, you don't necessarily need to upgrade it. And I think that's where there might be a question. If you under I'm trying to find the exact section. So 3. So 503 is about alterations. I would love to hear from other people on this, but my understanding of change of occupancy is it's a type of alteration. And under alterations, 503, it says if you don't touch it, you don't have to upgrade it. So that has some bearing on what we're talking about. But under 505, if you're changing from certain use types to other use types, you have to bring up to full compliance with the code. So I think there's a question there. But I think the original question in the opinion that is being asked for, the answer is clearly this only affects cities and code cities. It has nothing to do with the state energy code, the state building code, anything that the state does. It's clearly addressed to cities, and I guess I'd love to hear from Dirk on that if you have an opinion on that. But I guess I don't see how anyone could interpret it otherwise reasonably.
I do have an opinion on that, Chalice. It's an interesting conversation. Todd, do you mind if I jump in?
Of course, please.
Yeah, so I really appreciate Wabo's questions and some of the open inquiries regarding the scope of this statute. It raises some important questions, obviously. And in my mind, there's a fundamental question that's implicated by the Wabo inquiry, which is what is the council's job here, right? Because generally speaking, so what are we talking about? We're talking about the statutory authority and the authority under the WAC for the council to render non-binding opinions regarding the codes. Okay. The council has not ever taken the position that it has exercises general authority to offer opinions about statutes that govern the codes, or statutes that are adjacent to the codes, which arguably maybe this is. Instead, when we go through the work to, respond to a question that a local official has regarding a code official has regarding the code, it's going to be about the code. What did you guys mean when you adopted this code? So the way that Wabo framed up the question is a little challenging because they didn't actually ask the questions, Chell, that you're asking here, which is how do these codes apply, right, to in the context of this new statute? And so I have had conversations I think I can share with Dustin to kind of work through, hey, is this even something that the council should take up? And my view is if the council is looks to the questions that you're asking here, Chell, what's the intersection between these specific code provisions of this new statute? Then that's something that I think you should have a role in, or can exercise a role in under the authority you enjoy under the statute and the WAC. If, however, it's kind of a broader question, hey, what does the statute mean? That's not something that the council historically will wade into. And there's a couple reasons for that, right? Obviously, there's the question of authority. There's a question of expertise, right? You're not a bunch of judges who are making determinations of what the legislature intended, right? With an RCW, you know about what your rules intend, but not so much what the legislature intended. And then, second, just pragmatically, we're not in a position where we can just be offering opinions, non-binding opinions regarding statutes in general. That would take up a lot of our time. I do want to stress to everybody that if the council does wade into this and offer an opinion, it would be non-binding. It has maybe some utility because it would maybe help people think about it, but it's not like a court would defer to it if there was a legal challenge, right? It's just somebody's opinion. So my view is I think there is some space for the council to get involved in trying to answer this question, but really the question will be about how your rules, what your rules mean in the context of the statute. What's the intent of these rules? And I guess the final thing I would say too is, again, I think it's really respect Wabo offering this opinion, and I think it's our question rather, and I think it's really important. But there's no mandate that the council has to actually answer the question too, right? So I mean, you could take a pass. That's up to you. Not saying you should or you shouldn't, but I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that you don't have a duty to respond to the question under the law. Chell, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it got yeah.
They got close. They got close enough.
Which is that this is not, or the question as asked is not a jurisdiction, and other questions could be asked that would be our jurisdiction.
I think so. It'll be up to you whether so you could theoretically accept Wabo's letter to say, hey, this is the question they're asking, or this is the question we're prepared to answer, or otherwise. I mean, that's going to be up to you, in my view. I think I've said enough for now, but I'm happy to weigh in. I should be clear too, to Patrick's point. I haven't formulated any thoughts on the substance of this, right? So I don't know what the answer to Wabo's question is, and I want to be careful because again, I would only offer some thoughts to this to the council if the council were to ask me to, and I would urge the council if they were to ask me the questions about this, it should be not so much about what the statute tells cities to do, but what the council's own rules mean. All right, now I'm done.
That's helpful, Derek. I mean, and my reaction to that, it sounds like then even the answer provided here may be out of scope. But Mike and Ridley, yeah, sorry, get my opinion, then I cut everyone off. Let's go to Mike and Lisa first, and then we'll get to Roger and Tom, because Mike, your hand popped up in Chell's statement.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Chell. I'm in agreement with Chell that C503 as shown on the screen right now and would still apply. Item 2 is if you're converting, if you're converting any other space to an R, that you have to meet the energy code. That I think that's Wabo's kind of original input on the letter that they had sent as well. And I appreciate your input, Derek. we had debated, not we, it was a debate whether or not to issue this to the AG. So you're the AG for the council, so you can't technically, again, you can't you can't give information, other than just legal guidance to them as their representative. But um, I don't disagree with your assessment of that either, that this may be out of scope for the council. But hopefully they can provide some insight if they don't make a formal opinion, whether the interpretation, or sorry, not the opinion, the opinion interpretation would be binding or not. But some guidance on how the rules would actually apply, or if they even apply, based on this legislation. Again, I think this is where sometimes we don't have enough time you don't have enough time as a group to get into some of the legislative language and how it's going to apply for code officials. But again, considering the State Building Code Act is only required to be enforced by cities and counties and their building officials, it gets important to us, and these are the ones that really cause problems because we don't have any clarity. And if we can't get clarity and guidance from the SBCC, then it's going to be inconsistent and not very beneficial to the developers that I think want this language in some way, shape, or form. Thanks. I know there's a lot of other hands up.
Okay. Well, it's all public process. So, okay, let me go to Lisa first and then Roger, please. Lisa, are you still with us?
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you. I just was going to toss in one additional detail. I was looking for the code section that refers to existing buildings, and that was section C501.1.1, existing buildings. That's the language that talks about, if we call it that if you touch it, you have to bring it up to the current code rule, basically stating that, that would be C501.1.1. And that's the section that talks about, if you don't touch part of an existing building, then you don't have to bring it up to full compliance with the energy code. That said, the language in C505.3 essentially supersedes that, and it states that in these certain change of occupancy and change of space conditioning conditions, then the whole building has to be, our understanding of the correct interpretation is that it's to be brought up to full compliance with the energy code. So we hear a lot of questions about this where folks get confused. They put the two sections side by side, which one supersedes. And our interpretation is that 505 is pretty clear that if a building undergoes one of those changes, then it does need to be brought up to full compliance with the current energy code. And that applies to all disciplines. So envelope, lighting, mechanical, service, water, all of that. So just want to get that out there because I know Shell was looking for that section and the language that refers to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Roger, please.
Yeah, I had my hand up before Dirk gave his response, and I was just going to express my thought and my opinion, kind of what I'm feeling, and that is I feel like I'm being asked to interpret RCWs, and I don't think that's my job. As much as I like to banter around with Dirk on various wording of RCWs, I don't think it's the council's job. So having said that, I would need, if we were going to offer an opinion, it would need to be on on what is in our code. And I am unclear at this point if we can do that. I would need Shell or somebody to say, okay, this is something, an interpretation of our code that can help clarify this. But I don't know. Beyond that, I'm not sure that we would want to create an answer. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yep, helpful. Thank you. Okay, Tom, and then Katie.
Okay, so as a builder and developer, I would like an answer right away too. But a lot of these recent legislation by the state is to create more housing and, allow different types of housing. And many of these legislations are to kind of like get these cities to change some of their planning and development codes to allow more housing. Um, and, but, I agree with Roger and Chell that, I think this question is really asking the council to interpret RCW 35A .2.21.440, which is not our jurisdiction, So as much as, being in the industry, I want an answer, but I don't think it's like it's for the council to interpret this RCW.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Katie.
Yeah, in looking at just the question itself, it's written kind of unclearly, I think. So it says section, and then it says section 505 in both codes. And so is that what we're talking about, or are we talking, because then if you go down to the question number 1, it says there's this, the third sentence says the RCW section expressly prohibits jurisdictions from imposing current energy code requirements, but it doesn't say specifically which one that is. Is that the 40? Oh shoot, I just closed it. Is that 35A 21.440 that we're talking about then? Because that's what's in the answer. And so I just want to be super clear that that's what, if that's what we're talking about, because that's what's in the answer. 35A isn't under our purview, but 1927 is, and section 505 are. And so it would, to me, mean that I just want to have clarity there in the question so that I'm reading all of this correctly. And it's hard for me to, want to give an opinion about 35A. I feel like, unfortunately, that's where a court would come in handy. And if it were to arise to that, but I don't know where else it would go.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Katie.
Todd, do you want me to jump in real quick here?
Please.
I don't know if you want me to, but
I think lawyer to lawyer would be great there.
I've heard a couple folks say, including you just now, Katie, where else would it go? So, it was Micah who said maybe this should go to the Attorney General's office. So I want to remind folks that there is the Attorney General's office does issue formal and informal legal opinions regarding things like the scope of the statute or its meanings. One of our jobs here. I'm not usually part of that team, but there's a group of very, very smart lawyers who do that in our office. And the Attorney General's opinion, a formal opinion, actually does have some carry some weight with courts. So I'm not making any recommendations that anybody do that here, but that is another pathway that you'll sometimes see when folks are looking for clarity on the law.
So really quick as a follow-up, so could we make a recommendation that WABO does that?
You can make a recommendation regarding anything if you'd like to. It's the will of the council, but that sure would be an option, Katie. The Attorney General's opinions can only come from certain categories of officials, can't be made by anybody. So that if WABO, for example, wouldn't be empowered to make that request.
Okay, thank you. I saw Micah's hand go up first, and then I'll go to Chell.
Thanks, Katie, for the question, and Derek's input again. I guess, maybe there's a path to come back to the council and not go to the AG on this. But again, it would probably be revolving around an RCW. I mean, maybe we come back and ask, would the council say, yes, we need to follow RCW 1927-050, regardless of what other statutes say, which says we shall enforce what you adopt. I'm sure folks would have a big opinion on that. If not, it just seems like any legislation could come through telling us not to, enforce any parts or multiple portions of what you adopt. And then again, we're in this same conflict. So I guess if we needed to go, or if WABO needed to go to the AG, that would be fine. And maybe Derek, you can tell us how long that process takes. We have a timeline on this legislation. I think it's July 1 of this year that we have to have ordinances in place if we have to actually modify ordinances, and that's an extraordinarily short timeline. And then I guess, Katie, to help maybe some clarity to you, if I could ask Dustin to send you the original WABO letter. WABO didn't draft this question. I believe staff drafted this question based off the letter we sent. So maybe the letter would be beneficial to all of you if that's a possibility. I know Dustin shared it on the screen, which I really appreciate, but maybe he can get that out to you. Again, this is great discussion. The code officials that enforce your adopted standards need some direction, and hopefully you can provide something, even if it's not a formal opinion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Let's go to Chell.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to cast a bat for some solution that is an opinion, but it is, couched in what we know and what we have jurisdiction over. So I guess the opinion that I would add to is right after the parenthetical 2 in the answer. And it would say, appears to apply to ordinances adopted by cities, comma, not by the State Building Code Council. And it uses the word appears, so it's kind of couched in like, that's what we think, but we don't really know. And it reiterates what we do know, which is you're supposed to enforce the code. And it also says what we think, which is it says cities in the statute. It doesn't say state or anything like that. So anyway, that's the best I can think of to do today that would provide some answers, but also stay within our lane.
Okay. Let's go to Ty, please.
Just a quick question on the Attorney General. I guess this is a question for Dirk, but like Micah asked about timing, but is it also discretionary? I mean, if you submit a question for an Attorney General opinion, you get one, or is it at the discretion of the team? And if they decide to issue opinion, what is that timeline?
Yeah, a really good question. So I could answer that based upon the last time I was involved in that process, which was a few years ago. So I can't speak to how it is exactly right now, but I know that it can take a while for an opinion to be issued. There aren't any statutory deadlines. There were some internal deadlines that the office has had to issue those, and I've seen them take 6 months. Could be less. Can the office decline to render one? They can. Tie under certain circumstances, if, for example, it's a requesting something regarding pending legislation, if there's a request that is touches on constitutional issues, the agency can elect to, the Attorney General's office can elect to say, no, we're not going to render an opinion on that. They could also elect to not issue a formal opinion. It would just be an informal opinion that would be helpful, but doesn't, again, carry that sort of imprimatur of the office that makes it helpful for judges.
Thank you.
I should also note too, I believe, and this is going to stir things up, but I believe SBCC, the chair can request formal opinions too.
From the AG's office?
Yeah, I believe so. I've never seen that happen with the SBCC, and if you were going to go down that route, I would want to work with you to see what that looks like. But I am aware that boards and commissions at the state are authorized by the Attorney General's office to submit requests for formal opinions.
That's an RCW over.
Don't know if it's an RCW. Sorry to say, but
okay. Okay, interesting. Thank you. Let's go to Jay first, and then Micah. Yeah.
Okay. I found the reference because I remember when we worked on it. Dustin, can you bring up WAC 501.1.1? Because this is where I think this does apply to us, and that we have answered this. there, existing buildings. The last sentence of .1, unaltered positions of existing buildings should not be required to comply with this code. And I think this is where we had complied with the previous legislation and had dealt with this issue. So is the question really, should this be around 501 versus 505?
I'm going to go to Micah because he had his hand up. So maybe does it hurt that?
Yeah, I'll go for that first and then respond to something else. I think the answer would be no. It wouldn't be clear there because sometimes you're going to have an alteration to an existing building that's not a change of occupancy or change of use. So that's why it's more specific in change of occupancy, I think, in 505(3). This is kind of a standard, the 501(11) for existing buildings. If you're altering an existing building, but then change of use and change of occupancy have different requirements and different provisions in both, or not just the energy code, but all the other codes as well, including the existing building code and others. So I would say that would not be the answer.
So this was a specific amendment that we discussed, and I found my notes from 2023 when we discussed it, where to comply with a separate piece of legislation, we specifically said, okay, if you're converting part of a building to residential use, you only had to deal with that part that you were changing and not the unaltered portions. And so I think this gets to some of the other questions and the other legislation around code cities where yes, that was directed at cities, but this is where we deal with this in our code, in code that we control.
That may be the case, Jay, that this did relate to some of the legislation, but I don't think it does to this legislation. I haven't fully evaluated this section, but if you're talking about change of use and not altering anything, that's one thing. But we're talking about converting. The legislation we're having concern with in 35A is converting commercial spaces to residential spaces. So that's a change of occupancy that may, more than likely, is going to require some type of alteration. So this wouldn't apply to that.
That's exactly what it says, Micah, change of occupancy for residential purposes.
Unaltered portions.
Right, saying
Again,
that if you don't have to bring the full building up to current code. It's about saying you only have to have those residential spaces meeting the code. I remember the discussion from several years ago when we talked about this.
Okay, and again, this is going to be particular buildings within the last 3 years. So older buildings, which we're talking, they could be 60, 80-year-old buildings. Where do we apply and what do we apply this to? I think what you're getting into is some type of interpretation question between these two sections, which again, I haven't fully evaluated, and maybe others can say differently. I think Lisa and Shale brought this up, but again, this is not about change of occupancy. This section,
because it talks about that, and as we made this was part of saying, how can you change parts of buildings to residential use? There was a particular concern about, you didn't want something that was a brand new building to have to deal with. That's why the 3-year limit is there.
Okay, I don't disagree with that.
I think we've got to take.
But it's not relevant to the legislation we're questioning, and it doesn't apply.
I wonder if it is related because it's talking to the same issue.
It may be, but it's not about altered. This one's about unaltered spaces. The other one is about change of occupancy. They're different, and we can debate that, and we can go back and forth. I think this is not the question at hand, and it doesn't address the issue or the concern of what applies. If you're saying this applies, great, is what you're indicating is that the Washington State Energy Code still applies regardless of this legislation. That's what I'm hearing. But I'm going to go back to just the other thing that Dirk said, and Ty, I appreciate you bringing that back up on getting an AG's interpretation. If that's the direction of the council, I'm sure that would be fine. And again, I'd like to turn around and come back and ask, would you all interpret or provide an opinion on if the question was framed around 1927 and not 35A?
Okay. I think we're getting closer to understanding that scope. Micah, did you have a second question?
I think I did, but I may have lost it. And if I come back with it, I'll figure it out.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, coming back to that, let's go to Scott, please. You're on mute, Scott.
Oh, there, sorry. This is really near and dear to my heart. A lot of, I understand why the question is being asked, but as I hear us sort of go through this, I do come to the conclusion that it's not a building code question. It's an RCW question. And I agree that this 501 is about, existing residential unaltered portions. It's not about change of occupancy. And so I think it's imperative that we, give them some direction, not about interpreting the RCW, but at least because I don't think that we can do that. The R505 is really, really clear about change of use, but I also the near and dear part is that I'm a Seattle resident and I'm seeing what is happening in Seattle and the occupancy rates and the need for conversions, and finding ways to do that. And if it can't be done through an RCW change that allows more economical solutions to a very, very expensive conversion process, then it has to be done through other incentives, which I know Seattle is trying to do, or they're combining that. But this is this challenge that they have, and it's really not I mean, to me, I look at 505 and it's super clear. You change the occupancy, you're doing the upgrades, and we're really splitting hairs if you're not interpreting it that way. As a builder, I look at it that way, and I'm sure developers are splitting hairs, but I think we do need to provide some direction, whether it's, take this question, to the AG for an interpretation, if that's what you need. But I'm kind of curious from Micah, why did they choose to sort of present the question to us? And I think I know the answer. More expeditious possibly, but I don't know that we're going to get there. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Go ahead, Micah.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of the case is again, do we enforce your rules, what's adopted by the SBCC, or do we not? And that's really the question here. And maybe we've already been given that answer from you and the AG, is that's for us to ask the AG. It's not the council's determination of whether or not jurisdictions enforce your rules.
Yeah, Mike.
And I wanted to say too that I don't think there's any debate from WABO at this point on 5011 and 5053 and how those apply, especially for this interpretation. It's strictly around the statute and do we apply the state building code, what you adopt, or do we not? Thanks.
And Micah, my question is on 19.27050. It seems like that's out of scope also for interpretation from the council, even though that is obviously directly related to the codes that are developed in rulemaking. Is that you think that's correct?
Hearing from Dirk, that may be, but that's an unfortunate path, is that the council can adopt and say do these things, and then jurisdictions at that point would have their own determination whether or not they do it, even though it says by statute to do it. And now this says that other statutes that you have no control over or input on as a recommending body for rules can modify or provide guidance on. So it seems like anybody can come in with a modification in some other RCW and override the State Building Code Act. And then what are jurisdictions to do if we can't get direction in a timely manner based on legislation? I'm just opining here. Thanks.
Right. Go ahead, Scott. Was your hand still up or? Okay.
Sorry,
Go
no.
ahead, Katie. No worries.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about the implications of this and, and so the way this could go is, Micah, you would enforce, say you would enforce this, the state building code. And then would it be the developer that comes back and says, I don't agree with this, and we're gonna sue the city if you're working for the city? Or, is there an administrative process? So say they do that, and then, so could it also be then the city's attorneys that are making these legal opinions? I'm just trying to figure out the process to get an answer. I still think that going to the attorney general and getting an opinion would be, in my opinion, the best option that I've heard so far. Because it's a question of which law supersedes the other.
Sure. I would probably leave that answer up to Derek. I believe this is the same topic that came up with a previous lawsuit against the SBCC from BIAW that said that they weren't the correct body that should be sued, that it would be the individual jurisdictions, as the SBCC does not enforce what they adopt. And Derek, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that was the outcome of a previous lawsuit a couple years back.
Well, actually, yeah, for the record, you are referencing a lawsuit in which there was that challenged the state energy code on an EPCA preemption theory. It's called the Rivera case, and yeah, that case was dismissed by a federal district court on the basis that under the 11th Amendment, it was improper to sue the SBCC as the enforcement authority for the state energy code. So I think that's what you're referring to. But I think we all agree, and I've certainly heard you say a few times here, Micah, that the statute is pretty clear. It is local authorities who's responsible for enforcing the code. It creates some of the tensions that we're working through right now, but I think that's pretty clear.
Thank you. I'm glad you had the correct case reference offhand.
No, that's all right.
Addressed this somewhere, so
that's what I do for a living, so yeah, no problem.
Okay, Angela, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, one way or another, WABO's going to need to get an interpretation. WABO was coming to SBCC to try to get something done, I believe, in a timely manner, and I mean, to get a discussion going, quite frankly. Right now, what's going to happen until something official does come out is the same thing that happened with I-2066, where jurisdictions that don't want to enforce the energy code aren't going to enforce the energy code. Jurisdictions that do are going to. And it's going to be completely up to the individual jurisdictions as the enforcement agency to make their own opinions on what this legislation affects or means. And that's just how it is. It's going to create inconsistencies basically on the two sides of the state is what I see happening. And I mean, it's unfortunate. This is another sort of example of, good intended legislation when it doesn't get all the little intricacies right, how it can instead cause chaos. So, I mean, yeah, whether an opinion is made today or not, yeah, there's going to be repercussions for everybody of inconsistency. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Angela. Let's go to Hoyt first, Jill, if that's okay, so we can get another jurisdiction.
Yeah,
response.
from the city of Tacoma's perspective, it is important to get this decided because I get a lot of times, and I don't mean to I'm not going to throw any city at, but this other city didn't make me do this. And now you're saying you're making me do this. And it gets we're really hoping that this gets worked out so it's clear how we're supposed to enforce this code and not, one way or the other. In addition, as I do now, I do code reviews also. I have for other jurisdictions in the past of things like this, and questions like this come up all the time. It's probably existing buildings on this thing, especially for all accessibilities and things like that. Jurisdictions are the ones that are going to get drawn into these lawsuits if it does happen, if something gets missed. It's not always the designers. So if we can make this clear for everyone, it would help out smaller jurisdictions that don't have the expertise of some of our larger jurisdictions for XYZ reasons, and make it clear for everyone following the same rules. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, let's go to Chell. I mean, I have a follow-up question after Chell on what rules we actually adopt that address that or could address that in enforcement. But let's go to Chell first.
Thank you. I guess I see two options. One is to include the opinion with the modifications that I suggested. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. The other one is to simply ask the Attorney General's office to render an opinion, and maybe Todd, you're the right person for that. I see those as two options that we can do today. I don't see a whole lot of other options. So, what are people's thoughts on those two options? Just because at some point, it'll be midnight and we'll be still discussing this.
Well, it's a fair question that we start to bring this to a close here today. Micah, let's take the comment, please.
One final thing. I appreciate the options from Shell. If we do go back to the opinion letter response, I believe Shell's additions at the bottom or to the answer may need some clarification, at least in that the SBCC does not adopt ordinances; it adopts rules. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
See what
Yeah, I wasn't.
That.
Oh, sure.
But thanks.
Thank you, Micah.
I think the word rules or the right rule, you change the word to whatever Micah said. And then it would also strike the apply to energy code requirements that are beyond those adopted by SBCC.
Okay.
So do you want to change the word to rules, ordinances to rules, and then strike the last bit in black there?
Start with that. So change the ordinance to the word ordinances to rules.
To rules.
I'm going to say leave ordinances there, but I would say it appears to apply to ordinances adopted by cities and not by the rules adopted by the State Building Code Council is what I'm specifying. You all adopt rules, you don't adopt ordinances.
That's how I understood it also. So I'll add, I'm not, the first sentence even makes me a little uneasy that I guess it's factual though that, that it must be enforced by jurisdictions as required by the State Building Code Act. My question on 19.27.050, which is that it's referencing there, what rules do we actually adopt that enhance that enforcement, or that would be even something we would give an opinion on here? Those are by local ordinance, right?
You're asking me, Todd, because I'm not sure.
I'm asking anyone. I'm just
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, to maybe another way of asking the question, Todd, if I'm tracking, is this answer appears, at least to my eyes, to be rendering an opinion regarding what the RCW says.
Yes.
And I think what you're asking, Todd, is, hey, where's the nexus, the connection to an actual interpretation of a Washington Code provision to a rule?
Correct. Because otherwise it's enforcement and it's out of our scope.
Right. Would that be jurisdictions are required to enforce WAC whatever number that the Washington State Energy Code?
But I don't feel we have the authority to make a WAC for enforcement or am I wrong? Am I forgetting something?
No, no, I said you're saying that we're required to enforce the WAC that you all create.
Yeah, we adopt, amend, and implement codes, but none of those codes are enforcement. Okay, I'm not. Oh, go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry. I see your hand. Yeah.
I'm wondering, Derek, to your position, like, is it instead of offering an opinion on RCW, would it be appropriate to say we don't believe 35A 21440 applies to the State Building Code Council?
I listen, a couple reactions to that, but sure. But I want to be clear about one thing. I've been talking about the official statutory authority that you have that to render opinions regarding the codes. I think we've talked about before, and I might have mentioned earlier. I mean, if it's the will of the council, you can offer the council's thoughts or opinions about something. You've done it before on things. I would just say that generally it's not about RCWs, and it would carry no weight in court with so what you're saying there is a kind of it continues to be an interpretation of the statute, a pretty self-evident one. The statute doesn't apply to the council because by its terms it applies to the city, to those two categories of cities. And you certainly could say that.
I think I think it might be appropriate to just say that's beyond the scope, but then separately and not part of this opinion, I think what WABO is getting at and BIAW and some of this discussion is that I think that there is a valid issue here where the legislation is directing cities to do one thing where it indirectly applies to the work that we're doing, and the differences in 501 and 505 that we've talked about don't actually implement what 35A is asking cities to do. So I think there's a valid issue here, but I don't think it's something that we can address in this opinion and should be perhaps followed up offline in a request for clarification by the AG from multiple parties, including the SBCC, or maybe it actually requires a legislative fix. But I think the problem's valid. I don't think it's something we can address in an opinion, given everything we've heard today. Thanks.
Okay. And even a non-answer such as this, we've documented an hour and a half now of public process and discussion. So agreed that the opinion might not be satisfactory, but I think we've, by process of elimination, made progress here. Go ahead, Micah.
I hate to throw a wrench in all of this, but would it be better to table this topic and look at other sections that may apply and work with Utah and maybe Dirk? Because when I say that, maybe this revolves more around WAC 5111C 10500 that talks about inspections and approved agencies that must do those inspections. And that revolves around the energy code specific that you all created the rules for. I just to throw something out there, maybe maybe somebody could revise the letter we. When I say we, I'm not currently representing WABO, but maybe that's an additional path, is to table it and revise the request to where it's something you all could interpret. And maybe a parallel path is to send the letter to the AG with some support from Utah as the chair. Thanks.
I think it's valid because there are a couple of questions here. One, everyone is indicating here to be careful. And second, I don't believe we feel like we've gotten to a satisfactory conclusion yet. And then and that's a new area for many of us, that there's this ability with boards and commissions to perhaps to engage the AG. So Katie?
Yeah, I'm sorry to surprise you with that.
That's okay, and that's just I'm just using that as
No, it's
to
off
say
to the
let's
races,
maybe
right?
Mike is right. Maybe we should table and do more research on this. So, um, thank you for raising that. Go ahead, Katie.
Well, I was going to ask if you feel like you have enough to go to the AG as a chair, or do you feel like it would require a motion for that, or do we table it and do that research and then come back?
Can I answer that? So here's my recommendation, because in my living memory, and folks who've been around longer than me probably can, there's probably been instances where SBCC has gone to the AG's office for a formal opinion. But I think I would want to help confirm that that's the path available. And so, but I don't think we would need to like go to another meeting for that. So I think a careful motion that would say, working with your assigned attorney general, you're authorized, the chair of the committee to pose the question that was offered by WABO to the attorney general's office, requesting a formal opinion if you're so authorized. So then I can just square it with my folks. Hey, this is the right way to do it, and then we can make that happen. You've got the authority that you need from the council, Todd, to make it so, and then you make it so. No guarantees that they accept it. No guarantees that it takes, that it won't take a long time to do it. But at least we go down that path if you think that's something that's important to happen here.
Okay, and with the authority, I wouldn't want to do it in isolation, obviously, and wouldn't be able to. So we would make sure that's transparent to the council. Okay.
Well, given the concern about different jurisdictions applying different energy code, I would offer that motion that Dirk just stated as a potential. I would just make that motion.
And sorry to interrupt the motion, but we can also bring it to the executive committee in a few weeks and review, knowing there's urgency, but let's also be careful. Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Do we need to restate the motion?
Please do.
My understanding is that the motion is we would give Todd, and in collaboration with our Attorney General counsel, as well, to the authorization to go forward and do that research to see how we could make a request to the Attorney General's office for a legal opinion.
Okay.
Well, wait, hold up. That's great. That's the first step. But then if it's just doing the research, then we're just doing research. If you want Todd to actually make the, if appropriate, then you'll want to take a vote on that too.
And then if appropriate to go forward with making that request.
Okay, Chell?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. Okay, been moved and seconded. Is there any other council deliberation? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Okay, with that, then we'll make sure we report out to the council that, and this is very transparent, so that there's an opportunity for individual response before we actually take action. Micah, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you all. I know it's a long discussion, but it's an important topic, and it's coming up more often as we see more pieces of legislation come through and that may conflict with what you all as a body adopt. So we appreciate it as the enforcement group. And then I do want to say thanks to Lisa. I believe this topic will come back up, but based on some of Lisa's comments as well, because there are additional questions on the actual language and how it applies and how it would work with the current energy code language. So it's, even if we get an opinion, there's still going to be more information or requested information on the actual code and how it works with this. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yep, likewise, it's a far greater topic than I thought it was, and this was perhaps a good public forum. Go ahead, Chell.
Yeah, do we need to table the opinion request?
It wouldn't hurt. formally.
Motion to table the opinion request until our next meeting, or such time as the prior motion to come back with an answer comes back.
I second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor to table signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the opinion is tabled. Okay, we learned a lot. We will close item number 9. Any other business for the council? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for a lengthy process today. We are adjourned.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, guys.